We acknowledge that we are on the lands of Anishinaabe Nation. This spot where we gather is the traditional land of the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ottawa, Potawatomi, and Ojibwe. We also recognize that this land is now home to the Delaware Nation. This land was settled through the McKee Purchase Treaty of 1790, and we as beneficiaries of the treaty must recognize our responsibilities, including our collective responsibilities to the land and water. Mr. Mayor, we do not have a supplementary agenda this evening. Rules of decorum at a council meeting. The municipality of Chatham-Kent supports open meetings that welcome debate of public policy issues in an atmosphere of inclusiveness, integrity, civility, fairness, and respect for differing points of view. Anyone conducting themselves in a way that disturbs, disrupts, or impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting, interrupts or makes derogatory statements or hate speech, defamatory comments about councillors, staff, speakers, or fellow members of the public may result in removal from the premises. This also applies to deputations. We ask that you do not approach members of council if they are seated in their council seats. The public, unless invited, is not permitted to come into the gated horseshoe area. The use of posters, signage, and literature is also prohibited. Attendance this evening. We have everyone in attendance but Councillor C. McGregor. Disclosures of pecuniary interest, direct or indirect. We have two. Councillor MacDonald and Councillor Crew have declared a conflict on item 22A, the Together CK grant, the 2025 funding recommendations. We now move on to the artist feature, Here I Am, which is a student art exhibition, and I'll call upon Vanessa Cornell.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, staff, and community members. My name is Vanessa Cornell, and I am the curator at the Thames Art Gallery and Art Space. I'm here today to showcase one of the two current displays at the Thames Art Gallery, Here I Am, student exhibition, which is on display until June 1st. We celebrated the opening of this amazing exhibit, along with Michael Belmore's Power Lines in the Distance last Friday evening, with 165 people in attendance. Here I Am showcases the passion, curiosity, and talent of young artists in grades 9 through 12 from across Chatham-Kent, with contributions from 79 students representing 5 high schools. Their creativity and dedication continues to impress. There was also a beautiful performance by the Chatham-Kent High School Choir, an addition that we hope to expand upon in future to include all creative arts. Virtually debuting in 2021, this annual exhibition found its physical home in our gallery in 2024, offering students the opportunity to share their artistry with the community. We are honored to support this platform and witness the growth of emerging creatives. It is an amazing time to be working with the youth in Chatham-Kent. As part of the exhibition's offerings, TAG offers 5 awards, including 2 awards of excellence and 3 People's Choice Awards, which are voted on during the opening reception, as well as a $1,000 scholarship generously donated by Kathy Van Ray Myers. This year's winners were Soren Morgan from UCC and Scarlett Kuhl from CK for the Awards of Excellence, Joshua Heiss from UCC, Abigail King from John McGregor, and Scarlett Kuhl from CK for the People's Choice Award, and Caleb Lusaw from John McGregor was this year's scholarship winner. And we do have a piece here in the chamber this evening from our scholarship winner. In addition to the exhibition, TAG offered a half-day workshop with internationally renowned Anishinaabe artist Michael Belmore. Each Chatham-Kent High School was invited to send up to 5 students to participate on and create a collaborative art piece showcased in Michael's exhibition Power Lines in the Distance, which is also on display until June 22nd. As part of the day, Michael gave an artist talk, gallery tour, and a prompt for their contribution to his sculpture. Engaging with youth in artistic endeavors is crucial for fostering creativity, cultural awareness, and personal growth. By involving high school students in this workshop, TAG not only provided them with the unique opportunity to learn from a distinguished artist, but also empower them to express their perspectives and collaborate. The experience helps to build confidence, inspire future artistic pursuits, and cultivate a deeper appreciation for the arts in our community. If you haven't had a chance to see this amazing display of Chatham-Kent talent, please be sure to come to the gallery, which again is on display until June 1st. Thank you.
Vanessa, thank you. This event is so important to the community, so important to the young artists. It's really good that we celebrate all our budding artists because there's a lot of pretty amazing. So if you haven't got out to see it yet, pop in and absorb all the amazing stuff that happens with our youth in Chatham-Kent. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we do not have any deputations this evening. We'll move on to the consent agenda. So tonight in the consent agenda, the following reports have been pulled. Item 15A, Contract Award R24-327, Supply, Delivery, and Installation of the 2 office trailers, pulled by Councillor Story. Item 15B, the sole source purchase of 1 land ambulance. Administration has requested that this item be pulled and brought back to a future council meeting. Item 16A, the Community Paramedic Program. There is a presentation this evening. 17A, the Blenheim Power Supply Reliability Improvements and System Overview. There is a presentation this evening. Item 18A, the Mayor's presentation of the 2026 budget update. There will be a presentation by the Mayor. Item 19A, Council Financial Advocacy to Upper Levels of Government, a presentation by Gord Quinton. Next item is 20A, the Road Safety Assessment, Kent Bridge Road and Ridge Line Intersection, Community of Howard, pulled by Councillor Wright. Item 20C, Chatham-Kent Municipal Airport Updates, pulled by Councillor Doyle and Councillor Story. 20D, Streetlight Maintenance Integris Service Level Agreement, pulled by Councillor Story. 22B, the motion by Councillor Sakachi regarding Councillor Ward Funding Program, pulled by Councillor Sakachi and Councillor McGrail. And 23A, the motion of Councillor McGrail regarding the Boil Water Advisory Fact Sheet, pulled by Councillor McGrail. And finally, item 24C, the motion by Councillor Doyle regarding the federal election. As the federal election has already been called, Councillor Doyle has withdrawn his motion. Therefore, the following reports will be approved on the consent agenda. And they are item 14A, B, C, and D. Item 19B, C, and D. Item 20B, E, F, G, H, and I. 21A and B, 22A, and 24A and B.
Councillor McGrail and Councillor Wright. Councillor Story.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair. Judy, I don't need 19C anymore because I already had asked those. I had already got that.
Sorry, which one was that one?
19C. Or sorry,
Yeah.
Oh, it's still on the chart, but it's on here.
Yes, I put it into the consent.
Okay, thank you very much.
So Councillor McGrail and Councillor Wright, can I get you to move the consent agenda, please?
Sure, I'll move that.
I'll second it, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Councillor Sakachi? Thank you. All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0.
We'll go to item 15, tender awards.
15A, Contract Award R24-327, Supply, Delivery, and Installation of 2 office trailers.
Councillor Story and Councillor Bondi, can I get you to put this on the floor, please?
Happy to make that motion.
And seconded.
Councillor Story, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just had a quick question on the trailers. I noticed in the report you've been working on this for a few months now, so could you just let us know, since a lot has happened since now in November, are these appear to be Canadian trailers, judging by the website of the successful bidder, and are these impacted by tariffs? Any impact on our cost for this? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the question. Ryan Brown, Director of Public Works. As you had said, this tender was posted and closed kind of before tariffs have been implemented, and obviously that situation still continues to change. So because the tender had no mention of tariffs, obviously, if approved by council, we'd be then entering an agreement for purchase of the trailers. Dave Taylor from legal has been the lead on the municipality's kind of contract language around tariffs, so we'd be working with him. Most notably, if there was a case where the proponent is saying, look, a tariff has been applied after we bid this, that would be on the municipal cost, but we did confirm it's a Canadian company making things in Canada. We highly expect there will not be any tariffs. If there are, it may be on, say, a subcomponent if you're buying a heating system or something for the trailer. And so we'd have to receive a change order from the manufacturer and have them explain why a tariff has impacted a certain good, if at all. But we're not expecting anything substantial.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0.
Item 16, Fire and Emergency Services.
16A, Community Paramedic Programs, and we'll call on Chief Case to introduce our presenters.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. You'll be aware, everybody will be aware of the outstanding work that our paramedics do day to day. Even now, the paramedics are on scene at a fire in Thamesville, which is currently being extinguished, and the public will see the ambulances flying around during the day and during the night. One thing that people are not quite as aware of is the work that our community paramedic program does to support some of the most vulnerable people in our society. So we've asked Peter Morisuti, the manager of Mobile Integrated Health Programs, to come and give council and the community a little bit of an insight into some of the outstanding work that this team is doing behind the scenes. Peter?
Sorry. Good evening and thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chief Case. Members of council, thank you for having me here tonight. I'm Pete Morisuti. I'm the manager of Mobile Integrated Health, also known as Community Paramedicine Program for the municipality of Chatham-Kent and Chatham-Kent EMS. I'm pleased to share the valuable work our program is doing and the positive impact it is having on the residents of the municipality of Chatham-Kent. This program is not a standalone initiative. It is a result of collaboration with many dedicated partners. I often say it takes a village, and I sincerely thank you for being an integral part of our village. Your support is essential to the success of this process or program and the care we are able to provide. So who are we? We're paramedics taking a proactive approach to healthcare, patient-centered approach to healthcare, dedicated to enhancing the well-being of medically vulnerable individuals within the community. Our focus is on providing support that empowers individuals to maintain their health and quality of life right where they live. At some point in our lives, we will all need care. For many, the biggest barrier is not the need for care, it's the access to it. Community paramedics work to break down those barriers by delivering care directly to those who need it the most at the right time and in the right comfort of their own environment, ensuring that no one is left without care they deserve. Client visits are usually fully covered through the provincial funding model, ensuring there is no additional cost to the municipal taxpayer. This approach not only provides essential care, but also helps reduce ER visits and divert 911 service requests, easing pressure on emergency services while improving patient outcomes. Who are our clients? Our clients include those who are high risk of living with complex medical issues that may be prone to hospital readmission. Some of the services we provide. We provide a wide range of in-home services, taking a holistic approach to healthcare to support our clients in safely remaining in their homes. This is our referral form. Anybody can refer. Our primary care physicians, Ontario Health at Home, our frontline paramedic staff. Our frontline paramedic staff gives us the best view because they're the ones right in the house at the right time where they need it the most. We also are live on our Ocean E referral platform, which brings in a few referrals through the general public, which is fantabulous. Our guiding principles, they're patient-centered care. We deliver compassionate, respectful, and equitable care. While accessibility, remove the barriers to healthcare for vulnerable populations. We collaborate with partners in the healthcare and community agencies for seamless care. Innovation, we use best practices and data-driven outcomes to improve our patient outcomes. Prevention, focus on early intervention to reduce ER visits and hospital stays. And accountability, to uphold professionalism, ethics, and transparency, while our community engagement advocates for local healthcare needs and resources. So, our community paramedic results. Our 2024 community paramedic program demonstrated a 66.48% reduction in 911 calls amongst our clients, an improvement over last year's 63% reduction. By decreasing emergency calls and hospital transports, we empower the patients to receive the care they need in the comfort of their homes, promoting better recovery, reducing the strain on emergency service, and enhancing overall healthcare efficiencies within our community. These are just some of the stats for our 5,300 clients, or 5,300 visits we performed last year. We had 2,044 clients. As the saying goes, it takes a village to achieve meaningful change. Our program is built on strong partnerships, allowing us to deliver care where it is needed the most. Through close collaboration with healthcare providers, social services, and community organizations, we create a seamless network of support that enhances patient outcomes and strengthens community well-being. The following is a snapshot of the impactful programs we are involved with and remarkable results we have achieved. First is mobile care. Mobile care is a clinic on wheels designed to expand access to health care and mental health services for individuals without primary care providers. By bridging care directly to participating communities, we ensure that the patients can receive the support they need when and where it's needed the most. Our goal, to ensure individuals receive the care and support they need at the right time and the right place. Provide early intervention, care in a culturally competent and safe environment, and offer a free walk-in service available to all members of the community. Through our outreach, we have proudly served over 1,100 clients for the fiscal 2024 year across various locations in the community, as you can see. Our other partnership, our seasonal care clinic partnership, affectionately known as the little trailer that could. This program was designed and located 150 feet from the ER to deliver timely clinical services, easing the burden on our already overwhelmed emergency room during peak respiratory infection season. By bridging care or bringing care directly to the community, we enhance access to treatment while supporting the broader healthcare system. These are some of our results. This data highlights the success of our clinic. Initially, it was designed as a 7-day per week model in 2023-24, but through data analysis, it revealed that a 5-day per week schedule, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., was most effective. The clinic achieved a 97% overall satisfaction rate based on survey responses, with an average turnaround time of just 35 minutes for the patient from time of registration to time of visit completion. So that demonstrates both efficiency and exceptional patient care. Through our collaborative partnerships across the multiple sectors, we've established an enhanced navigation resource team to provide patient-centered care for individuals experiencing houselessness. Our community paramedic program, also Pathways to Care. Our team includes community paramedics, housing stability workers, and peer-to-peer leaders, ensuring a well-rounded approach to care. The implementation of P2C in our region is breaking down barriers to essential services, making healthcare more accessible for the vulnerable members of the community. Together, we are working to reduce the stigma for individuals seeking medical care, fostering trust and engagement. Our partnership supports a holistic approach, including post-hospital discharge, health assessments, drop-in outreach clinics, and relationship building to better serve our community. By working together, we're making meaningful strides in improving healthcare access for those who need it the most. These are members of our team. So my apologies. It's an extra slide here. There it goes. P2C data. This slide presents a high-level overview of our P2C data up to including March 20th, 2025. The program launched September 4th, 2024, providing community-based clinical care, followed by a hospital-referred service starting September 30th, 2024. As highlighted, P2C is making a significant impact in improving healthcare access for this vulnerable population. For a more in-depth look at the P2C initiative, if you kindly scan the P2C code, there's a QR code in your presentation. It can explain it more in detail. So data comparison for before and after P2C implementation demonstrates significant impact on emergency service demand. In the 3 months prior to our program's launch, paramedic call volume amongst these clients was substantially higher. In 6 months following, there was a 73% reduction in paramedic calls, highlighting the program's effectiveness in providing proactive, community-based care and reducing the reliance on emergency services. This data reinforces the value of early intervention, holistic support, and collaboration, ensuring that individuals receive the care they need outside of the 911 system, ultimately easing the pressures on paramedics and the emergency rooms. Chatham-Kent Community Care Team was another initiative that we launched. It has now since been terminated on March 31st, with 29 clients being seen. And these were similar to P2C, but directly from the emergency room. All right, we would pick up the clients directly out of the emergency room and help them navigate through the healthcare system. And finally, our latest project involvement, the Leading Project. This is a collaborative initiative between several partners aimed at providing timely, compassionate wraparound care for palliative patients in the greatest needs. While still in its early stages, the strength of the partnership involved ensures the patient will receive exceptional wraparound care in the comfort of their own home, where they truly deserve to be, surrounded by the support and dignity they need during this critical time. As the roles of paramedicine and community paramedicine continue to evolve, we must adapt to enhance both patient care and system efficiencies. By focusing on high-quality, patient-centered healthcare, we can not only save valuable time, but also ensure individuals receive the best possible tailored care for their unique needs. This approach will ultimately create a more effective, responsive healthcare system, benefiting on both patients and the broader community. Thank you once again for allowing me to provide you with an overview of our community paramedicine program within the municipality of Chatham-Kent. If you'd like more detailed information about any of our programs, I'd be happy to connect with you and discuss how we're making improvements to the healthcare outcomes in our community. Your interest and engagement are greatly appreciated, and thank you once again for being part of our village.
Thanks, Peter. Any questions from council? Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor Anderson.
Thank you through the Mayor, Pete. Obviously in my daytime work, our OHT partners often with the community paramedic program. So I think it goes without saying that the partnership that we've created in Chatham-Kent is certainly something that all of our patients are benefited by. The question that I have, though, that I think is really important to highlight for council is really around community paramedic funding. Can you, at like a 3,000-foot view, talk about where the community paramedic program is funded from? Is that from taxpayers directly here in Chatham-Kent through our municipal agreement with Medavie and ambulance services, or are there other sources?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's through a provincial funding model, actually. So there is no cost or no additional cost to the municipal taxpayer at all. So thanks to the province, we're able to run these programs and create such great opportunities for the municipality.
Great, thank you. And I might have known the answer to the question as I asked it, but I just wanted to point out that really important plug around the community paramedicine program, because the province, or the Ministry of Health largely, is kind of the funder of that program, but the benefactor becomes the taxpayers of Chatham-Kent, because through all of these programs, we're preventing unnecessary 911 calls, right? And so we're able to then better utilize our ambulances for critical emergencies because we have all of these proactive and preventative programs. So I just wanted to point that out from a budget perspective and how some of these programs really do directly impact and benefit Chatham-Kent from a residency perspective, but also from a tax dollars perspective and being able to make our ambulances go far. So thank you for that.
Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor Crew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Morisuti, for that presentation. It was really informative and important for people to know the resources that we have in our community. I'm kind of going to piggyback off of Councillor Harrigan and come from a hospital perspective and just speak to the importance of this program, not only that it's provincially funded, but also it secures provincial funding for our actual hospital level as well, because it allows us to get patients from the ED into a bed, which is totally dependent on provincial funding. So if you don't get patients from ER to an inpatient room within a certain amount of time, then you could potentially lose your provincial funding. So having something like this, where it keeps kind of the volume of the ED down a little bit, so that there is space for people to come in that do need to be an inpatient in the hospital, is super, super important. And I can't speak enough about the support that I have for everything that your services are doing. I just have a quick question about, do you have response time targets for going to a house, and what does that look like?
I would like to defer that question to our general manager, Jeff Brooks. He could probably come up and speak to that if you allow him to.
Yeah, of course. I just didn't know if there was like a response time target that people can expect when they call, that they would have somebody there or assessed within a certain amount of time, or if they would then utilize EMS.
My apology. Are you talking CP for community paramedicine? Yeah, our time is within 24 to 48 hours is our target time to get somebody within the home to see a patient. My apologies. I thought you were talking about the overall 911 ops.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much.
Thank
And
you.
again, I appreciate the presentation. I appreciate everything that that you guys are offering to our community. Thank you.
Councillor Crew, followed by Councillor Finn.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. I don't work at with the healthcare system, but I do work with Peter very closely with the first strategy, which is our situation table ad hoc model that we have in Chatham-Kent. And what I want to speak to is the growth of this program, because I remember when it started, and it didn't have all of the community paramedics that I trained over the last few weeks, because I was kind of blown away at the amount of people that were working in that program now.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we have 7 full-time community paramedics that attend the calls for service, but then we have another 28 that are onboarded as part-time individuals who love the program and who love to give back and help out in the community. So
Yeah,
when there's a need, we can backfill it and take care of the clients within the municipality.
that's great. So I want to talk a little bit about the mobile care unit. A lot of times when we have vulnerable people in our community and they're suffering from illnesses, whatever it is, getting to an ER or getting to a doctor, or they don't even have one, is really difficult, even with seniors and shut-ins. How does our mobile care unit get to the people? Like, go to the people that need it, not wait for them to come through the door?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So our mobile care unit is strategically placed throughout the municipality. We run data every year. So myself and James Romley from CMHA run the data to see where our hotspots are within the municipality. So if you saw our calendar up there within the presentation, those are the hotspots. And we drive to go to the people as we know they're missing out on the health care they need, right? There's 32,000, I believe, unattached patients from primary care here in the municipality. So we have to go to them, right? So this bus affords us the opportunity to go out, help them in their place where they need it the most and at the right time, right? And they are busy. That bus is busy. They probably see over 24 patients a day on that bus, and they're lined up waiting for us to get when we get there. So it is
pretty
busy.
impressive. So if someone sees that bus parked somewhere, I don't know, wherever it's parked, can they just feel free to just show up?
Yeah, absolutely. Show up. You'll be given a number. We have a number, and depending on your needs and your time, average time is probably about 15 minutes per client, but sometimes a little bit faster depending on what the client need is, and we can cycle them through quite a
So
bit.
if someone wants to track down the bus, how do they find it?
Mobilecare.ca. You
Okay.
can go ahead and go online. Mobilecare.ca. They have the calendars posted for the month, and those are where we'll be. So
Thank
hopefully
you.
some future expansion coming. I'm going to knock on some
All right.
hardwood, but hopefully some future
Really good
expansion
work
coming to that.
and good
Thanks.
work, and thank you for everything.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, just a question. I've come across some people that I know won't go to because of the distance, go to the clinic, or go to a doctor, or go to Emerge. Is there a third-party referral system that I, as knowing somebody, could go or contact to have them checked on?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you can go ahead and go through Ocean, which is the live referral system, or even 211. We are tied to 211 with our partners at Fire, so we can definitely get somebody out there to see and help where they need to be.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to item 17, Integris.
17A, Blenheim Power Supply, Reliability Improvements and System Overview. We have presenters from Integris and from Hydro One. Welcome.
Through you, Mayor. Again, if Hydro One will be doing a presentation, then we'll both be available for questions from council should you have anything on either my report or theirs. So I'm going to turn this over. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor Caniff and members of council. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight and for Councillor Sakatri for bringing forth the reliability concerns in town of Blenheim. We know that being without power is challenging and the community has experienced several outages. We are working with Integris to assess the issue and improve reliability in the area. My name is Lei Zhu, manager of our distribution planning team. In this evening's presentation, I'll start by providing an overview of the electricity landscape in the town of Blenheim, give context to how the system operates. Then I'll highlight the recent system changes that have been made to support growth in the community. Then I'll take a closer look at reliability in the town, including where we stand today. Finally, I'll share the ongoing work that we're doing to strengthen reliability and to ensure safe and reliable power for the community. This diagram provides an overview of Hydro One's role within the electricity landscape. We transport large amounts of electricity from generating facilities over long distances through our high voltage transmission system, delivering power to local regions. At the transformer stations, this high voltage electricity is stepped down to a lower voltage and then distributed through a separate network called the distribution system. In the municipality of Chatham-Kent, local distribution companies include Hydro One and Integris work to ensure that electricity is delivered safely and reliably to homes and businesses. In the town of Blenheim, we supply power to Integris via our distribution infrastructure. From our transformer station in Chatham, we supply customers southeast of Chatham through two main distribution lines. As Integris mentioned in their report, they have been getting power from both of our main distribution lines for quite a few years. As communities like this one continues to grow, so does the need for electricity. Over the last few years, we've seen an increase in demand for electricity in the area. When customers come to us last year to connect to the grid, we reconfigured the system to supply these customers while still reliably delivering power to the existing ones. The reconfiguration work shifted Integris' normal supply to a single feeder. In Ontario, all distributors, including Hydro One, are required by our regulator, Ontario Energy Board, to connect new customers on a first-come, first-served basis. Even though Integris is now normally served by one feeder, the second feeder is still available as a backup to restore power when needed. Plus, with the new switches that we installed on Allison Line, we can quickly transfer Blenheim's supply to minimize the length of outages. As growth continues, we'll keep a close eye on how the system performs, and we'll work closely with Integris to make sure it's reliable. We know that power outages are destructive and have an impact on people, businesses, and day-to-day lives in the community. Since 2022, based on our data, the M17 feeder, which is the main feeder servicing town of Blenheim, has experienced 7 sustained outages in a little over 3-year time period. This puts it ahead of our system average in terms of performance across the province. For comparison, the M18 distribution line, which is the other line in the area, has experienced 16 sustained outages during the same 3-year time frame. Of the 7 outages on the M17 line, most were caused by external factors, such as the recent motor vehicle incident on January 17th. In that case, a vehicle struck a pole on the line, which caused an outage for both our customers and Integris' customers. Back in the fall of 2024, we installed remote operable smart switches on the line to help us quickly transfer power in situations like this. Regrettably, during the January 17th outage, we were unable to complete the transfer. We sincerely apologize for the extended outage experienced by our downstream customers as a result. We've taken lessons learned from this incident seriously and have taken a number of steps to make sure that the outstanding items needed to complete the transfer are completed. And we're now better prepared to restore power through the M18 line quickly and safely if needed. We also know that aside from these longer outages, customers have experienced some frequent momentary interruptions, especially between mid of January and early March of this year. To address that, we're in the middle of conducting infrared patrol of our lines and analyzing our protection data to pinpoint potential issues on the system. This will help us identify any needed repairs and continue improving the system reliability moving forward. On the same note, next, I'd like to take a few moments to walk through all the great work that have been done to improve reliability. Since Councillor Sakachi raised these concerns, we've taken a number of steps to strengthen reliability. One of the key focuses is completing routine vegetation management to prevent trees from coming into contact with our lines, which is a significant cause of outages in Ontario. We're also conducting regular line inspection to identify any potential issues, ensuring that the system is operating efficiently and safely. We're installing animal covers to reduce animal-related outages in key areas. We're also reviewing additional load transfer scenarios so that we're continuing to be prepared to restore power. Lastly, and as mentioned, we're actively investigating the recent momentary outages and will take the necessary corrective measures to improve reliability. Looking forward, as communities continue to grow and attract new developments, we will work closely with Integris to coordinate operations and to plan for the future growth in the town of Blenheim and surrounding areas. Our goal is to ensure that electricity infrastructure keep pace with demand, provide residents and businesses with safe, reliable power for years to come. Thank you again for the opportunity to present, and I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Are you, Tomo? Okay, so we'll open it up for questions now. Councillor Sakachi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I start, I do want to acknowledge the hardworking men and women that takes their safety into account every single time we have a hydro outage that goes in all elements, no matter the circumstances, whether it be ice storms, thunderstorms, all that. I just want to be very cognizant of bringing these issues to light. It's nothing to do with the amount of service when we have an occurrence. It's about the actual operations and the reliability of the supply. Just a quick question to you, Tomo. My questions to you are very, very short. Actually, is your report was very helpful, and I think it's really important to have a good public document there that's kind of touches on some of the concerns. But if you don't want to weed into the actual details of the report, would it be a fair and accurate assessment to say that the people of Blenheim area did have cause for concern in regards to the reliability or the challenges that they have been facing? Is it accurate to say that there has been some concerns and they are valid?
Through you, Mayor Caniff, yes, absolutely, Councillor Sakachi. It's a valid concern. It was raised. We had complaints raised through both you, through our call center, and we started doing a deeper dive investigation. The power quality couple things have happened. There's been the momentaries, which were an increase for a number of reasons, and as the report outlined, there are a number of factors that can cause momentary outages, and as well then the second supply point to the community, which affected the duration of outages. There's definitely been a degradation in the service and service quality, the power quality for the community of Blenheim. So very valid concerns that were raised, and we appreciate them raising them. We did a lot of investigation with Hydro One to try and figure out what was going on and sort of address the issue as best possible. We're still working primarily to work with Hydro One on the reestablishment of that second fee, the M18 being available regularly on a basis. The outage that happened on the 17th, which was probably the largest outage that the town of Blenheim has had, was 7.5 hour outage in negative 25-degree weather. Was definitely something that we feel that had we can now address better with Hydro One, and they're looking to see in what situations can the M18 pick up the entire town. That's where we're working towards. Obviously, Integris is looking for a 100% solution, always available, but with the recent growth in the county, that may not be possible. So Hydro One's committed to working with us to get that reliability built back up and reestablished as best as possible. So.
Thank you, and I do appreciate, Tomo, I do want to recognize that, when I brought these concerns to you, you were very supportive and helpful of bringing these to light, as well as Mayor Caniff. One question I do have for both of you, and, your presentation was very helpful. The one thing that I see, I guess, from a governance standpoint that my concern really relates to the most, though, is that when you have municipalities and towns like us that have I'm going to say a shared service, because ultimately Integris is their customer, and then we're, your customer. One thing that I am concerned about, and I'll say this, very respectfully, is maybe the amount of and the type of communication that transpires. Because after talking to Tomo about, and he was very respectful of the conversation, but he did indicate that, that there was some challenges from a communication standpoint of, how these things were being relayed to you. Is that fair to say, Tomo, in regards to you guys not knowing exactly kind of what transpired to cause these significant challenges before they actually started happening? I don't want to put you in a bad spot, so if you can't answer, then I understand that as well, right? So
there can always be better communication on all parts. We do work proactively with Hydro One wherever we can. They're a good community partner. This scenario was where communication very much failed. Integris wasn't aware of the configuration change that had happened on the M18, losing that second supply. That second supply had been there for 30 years. We'd relied on it for 30 years, had no issues with it for 30 years. And the configuration changed because there was growth in Hydro One's territory. We don't often share customer information. Obviously, those are things that are challenging, but we do work towards trying to improve those communications. That was definitely a failure in the process, that change, and it's coming to light now. We're dealing with improving those communication channels as we work together.
Thank you, and I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate all the work, Julia in the background there too, the relations from a municipal standpoint, having meetings and actually finding that there was some issues, so that this was productive, and this was, and Mayor Caniff as well. But just in closing, on behalf of the community, I just really want to say that those communication portions are so important to us. As everybody here knows in the chambers right now, is Blenheim is underway with its probably most cost significant development that we've ever seen from from the types of investments that we are seeing. We're seeing a subdivision that has large high rises. We're seeing a growth of potential of hundreds of more customers. So we just want to make sure that we are telling the community that we can sustain what we have, and that we are open for business. And to both of you, do you have any concerns now moving forward? I know you're still continuing to work on things and improve things, but there's no concerns about the development aspects, that not being able to meet those levels in our community. Is that something that is there any concerns with regards to those developments at all from a hydro reliability standpoint moving forward?
Through you, Mayor Caniff, no, Councillor Scotchy, there is no concerns from our perspective, and in fact, the $8 million we're doing to convert. So half the town is on what's called the 4 kV system. We're converting that to 27.6. That would provide about 4 times the capacity on that side of town. So that'll bring extra supply to the community, extra capacity to serve new homes. The old 4 kV systems aren't really capable of increasing a lot of load, adding new homes, new construction, new businesses. So converting the entire town to 27.6 over the next couple of years will actually add capacity to the community of Blenheim. And then if we do have our second reliable feed from Hydro One from the M18, that will give us a lot of reliability for those new homes and those new businesses in Blenheim, as well to get continued reliable service in the community. So we have growth planned for the community. We have the ability to serve that growth. And then really the last piece is, again, working together to get this reliability back up to the previous levels that Blenheim used to be able to enjoy.
Thank you. Just one question to Hydro One too as well is that, and I'll let you actually respond to if.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Just kind of adding to what Tom was saying there, I think, I'm hoping one of the highlights is that the M17, which is the normal supply to Blenheim, is a reliable feeder based on the number of outages we've seen in the last 3+ years. And I think some of the issues that you yourself have brought forth in the community, we really appreciate that, and we hope there's an open dialogue to continue to raise these issues forward, such that we can take a closer look and investigate, such as these frequent momentary issues, which perhaps weren't as known. So we appreciate you bringing that forward. In terms of the communication issues that you raised earlier and that Tomo has spoken to, that's definitely one of the takeaways from the events, unfortunate events on the 17th, and there's definitely a room for improvement on both of our parts, especially on our part, to make sure we're aligned on operating practices, what's what, prior to an event like that from happening. Sorry.
Thank you. And when did it come to light that there was no, just this is my final question, that there was no capability to provide our Blenheim with the service when there was that MVA? Like, when did that become basically acknowledged by your team, that capability wasn't there to transition to supply our community?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the question. I do want to clarify that the capacity and the availability was there during the January 17th event, which is to some extent unfortunate given that we did not utilize that. So the issue isn't as much of the availability, it's the fact that during the operation of the day, we were unable to complete that work, and as a result, a much longer outage than what we had expected or anticipated occurred, right? So the other work that we've done in anticipation, we're making sure that we're prepared for these outages, is installing those remote operable devices there on Allison Line. So they were installed last fall, and they were in place for situations like this. However, we were unable to utilize them, and that's something we're very regrettably, we regret, and those are the actions we've taken back to make sure these situations don't happen again in the future.
Thank you. And just lastly, thank you to both Hydro One and Tegris, your whole team, and Mayor Canna for the time to address this very important matter, because it is obviously extremely important when we're talking about hydro reliability, especially in a very growing community. So thank you.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you both for those presentations. Appreciate that additional information. The mention of the Blenheim Power reliability projects, who is paying for that? Is that an Integris bill or a Hydro One bill or a customer bill? Someone else?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff, to you, Councillor Story. The work that's being done, the $8 million being spent by Integris in our territory in Blenheim is the cost of our ratepayers. The Integris customers are paying for that. Any work that's done on the Hydro One system would be either paid by Hydro One or jointly funded by us if we were driving that need. The way that the electricity sector works is that the benefactor pays principal, so whoever's driving the build, whoever's driving the need ends up paying for the assets. So that work is being done by us to service Blenheim, so it'll be paid for by the 60,000 plus customers of Integris's rate base.
Okay, thanks. And the mention of that Hydro One was reviewing, you were studying the customer load on the 5M18 feeder. Do you have a timeline on when you'll be finished reviewing that or finished with that study and more information for us? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question. We're actively working on that due to some of the other events that the teams are focused on. We're hoping to have some results in the next couple of weeks, and we'll definitely be in touch with Tomo and team to share those results and continue working forward.
Great, thank you very much.
I just want to, I don't have a question, I just want to add a couple of comments to it. I guess electricity is something we take for granted. Every day, every time we touch that constantly. When you go flip that switch, you expect your light to turn on. And in this case, it didn't. And there's literally thousands of people that are responsible for getting that electricity between when it's first generated to when you flip that switch. So this is an unfortunate incident, but what I like about it is the response, is that when it came to Hydro One's, they responded quickly, and they've been working very diligently to make that happen. The same with Integris. So it's fantastic to see a partnership, two different businesses come together to create something. And I really want to highlight as well Councillor Sakachi. He stepped up big time here. He had a number of meetings, I know, with you, Tomo, with you, Lee, and I was part of some of them, but Councillor Sakachi really drove this, and I think collectively it was very much a team effort to make this happen. I know we're working to improve it even further, but I was very impressed with what we've done after the fact. Were we impressed that it happened? No. But we're very impressed with the process that happened afterwards. So I want to thank everybody involved. with making that happen. Thanks. I guess we'll move on to the next topic, Office of the Mayor.
18A, the mayor's presentation of the 2026 budget update.
Oh, everybody's leaving now, sure. So I want to take about 10 or 15 minutes tonight. You're probably wondering, well, why is the mayor presenting this? Well, I guess under mayor powers, I'm responsible to present a budget. So what I wanted to do is provide a little guidance of my own guidance in the public forum. And I wanted to give an opportunity, noting that our next meeting is I'm going to ask council to put their 22 cents in as far as the budget process. Knowing that I'm going to be working significantly with the budget chair, with administration, with council to put together a budget that works for all of us. So tonight I wanted to give an overview of where we stand as a municipality on a number of financial matters. We as council have some very important decisions to make that will shape the direction of our communities for years to come. Do we stand still? Do we stagnate? Or do we invest now to see a better Chatham-Kent in the future? I want to cover where we stand on debt, where we stand on infrastructure investment, where we stand on spending. Most importantly, I want to highlight the importance of strategically investing in our community, investing today for Chatham-Kent's future. So the first I want to start with is that right now affordability is a massive concern in Chatham-Kent, all over Ontario, all over Canada. I intend to direct staff to come back with a 2026 tax increase of approximately 3%. This will depend on funding from upper levels of government who have yet to step up and cover costs for infrastructure that traditionally have been covered by provincial and federal funding. We've been doing a lot of advocacy work through the OBCM, FCM, WOWC, MARCO, through contacts with our MPs, through contacts with ministers, through contacts directly with the Premier to talk about how we, as in Chatham-Kent, need funding. So I'm confident with the support from upper levels of government and input from council, we can get to this 3% level. One thing I want to highlight is that I'm not asking for cuts to services or facilities, period. So I don't want to, I know that that's an issue that popped up last time, is that we're going to start cutting all these facilities. I was suggesting that no cuts are vital to our vital rural services or facilities. No cuts to our vital libraries, parks, museums, or service centers. No cuts to our rural fire services. We are a community of communities, and for us to succeed, as such, we must support both the biggest and smallest communities in Chatham-Kent. What I'm asking council for are strategic ideas to lower costs while maintaining services across the board. So I'm going to start now. Where are we financially? I want to just take a quick look at what our spending is for the next, from 2024 to 2027. So on infrastructure spending, we're spending we've spent some of it and are to spend $450 million over a 4-year period. And you can see the significant portion of that is almost 72% is transportation infrastructure. And I'll let you read that, facilities and fleet, municipal drains, recreation, and when you look at recreation, we spent 5.5, we're going to spend 5.5%. So where are we getting the money? Well, through reserves and the money that we actually have in our tax base. So with this, we're not borrowing any money to make these expenditures. We've saved up. We've done a great job saving up, and we're through the reserves and through what we have in our current budget, this is what we're able to do. So I want to highlight something that I know we all hear about it, that, taxes. Nobody wants higher taxes. Next slide. Oh, the pregnant pause here. Yeah, the dramatic effect. Can I get a drum roll? Oh, okay. So I want to highlight here that this is over the last 11 years that inflation has averaged 2.8%. When you look at our operating budget over the last 11 years, if we set aside capital for a minute, our tax increases would have been over 11 years, 16%, which equate to 1.5%. So if we were funding capital, if the federal provincial government was fully funding any capital requirements, that's what we've been doing for the last 11 years is a 1.5% tax increase. But we've also, part of that increase, 20% of the tax increase, or we've raised taxes 20% to cover capital items. When we go back to the earlier slide, we showed we're investing $450 million. That's where that comes from. Overall, over the last 11 years, we've approximated the CPI as far as tax increase goes. So for 11 years, I just want to put that in perspective of what we're looking at here. Next slide, please. And we've all seen this one, but I wanted to reiterate it again. This is the 29 largest municipalities in Chatham-Kent, or in Ontario. So you can see that Chatham-Kent, and this is from the BMA study, that for years we've been on the far left, which is a good place to be. That our taxes are lower than anyone else in that category. I just want to bring that up to put again the taxes that we pay here in Chatham-Kent in perspective. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about council responsibilities. So we are in charge of hiring the CAO. We're in charge of overseeing the financial aspects of our municipality, and we oversee the operational part through the CAO. So we spend most of our time each and every council meeting talking about various things, approving them. One of the key aspects that we as council need to do is talk about strategic investment. Is we need to be looking 5 to 10 years out and say, what 5, 10, 20 years, what do we need the community to look like? What do we want it to look like? Because it doesn't just happen overnight. When we say let's build a subdivision, it's not as though, well, geez, all the infrastructure is going to magically be there. So we have to look out and say, where do we want growth? Do we want growth? Maybe we just shut down and say, you know what, we don't want anybody else moving here, let's just shut it down. That's council's prerogative to say, no, we don't want growth. On the flip side, if we want growth, we need to invest. So from that perspective, what we do today influences what we're going to do in the next 10 to 20 years. So I want to talk about, well, why do people move to Chatham-Kent? I've talked to a lot of people, I'm sure everyone in this room has talked to people and talk to people who've come here and why is it? I mean, the first thing here is it's affordable. Compared to a lot of other communities, when they come here, they say, you know what, the house prices are affordable. Various things, it's a lot easier to afford to buy a house or rent. The climate, you hear the climate, that's nothing we can do as council, the climate's the climate, but it's something that brings it here. The lifestyle, people look at the lifestyle and say, you know what, I like the idea of being able to locate 5 minutes to my work and cut out all that commute time. The people are pretty amazing here. But we look at what is it else that we offer from a municipal perspective. We can provide a job, we can provide a house. Well, what is it that we do in between? It's all of the arts, culture, the recreation. That's where we need to be planning. One of the areas we need to be planning for is that aspect of things. So what's some examples of strategic decisions we've made as council that have been successful? One of the big ones is the CIP program. That we put that to incentivize various investment in our community. Prior to the CIP, we had not had an investment in a large apartment building for 25, 30 years. We put the CIP in place, and we've had probably 15 different large complexes, either they're already built or in the process or they're in the planning stages. It's made a major difference here for our growth from all that perspective. When we look at what are some of the other things? The official plan. We're going to be dealing with that in the next year to say, where is it we want to start outputting more residential growth areas, more industrial, more commercial. We as council are deciding that, and that's going to impact us for the next 10 to 20, 30 years, what the decisions we're making there. The affordable housing, certainly that's another big strategic thing that we as council look at and saying, we need that. We have a waiting list of over 1,000 people on that list. How do we as council strategically meet that demand? Critical infrastructure. Again, I talked about it doesn't just show up. We need to, for water, wastewater, for various other things, we need to plan for that. And it takes years to build those facilities. We need to start planning and saying, what's our water needs for the next 10, 20 years? Are we going to have to, what sort of infrastructure we put in there? That's the planning we do. Recreational facilities is another big one that we have not invested in any significant recreational facilities since Thames campus, probably the 1980s as far as anything significant. So all of our recreational assets are aging. We have to look at it from a council and saying, we can keep ignoring it. We can say, you know what, we'll just wait till they fall down, or we can be proactive. As we've seen that as we move forward, if we delay these decisions, it gets more expensive. It's not going to get cheaper to say, okay, if we don't build for another 3 years, let's just do it in 3 years or 2 years, 4 years. It's going to be more expensive. So that's, we as council are moving forward, and this is going to be part of our budgeting process moving forward to say, what are we going to be doing from a strategic perspective? So I just want to highlight just quickly on the next slide that over the last 7 years, we've grown about 10% in population. So people, all the factors that I've mentioned earlier, people are coming here. Now, we want people to keep coming here because it lowers our costs, various things, and it's the amenities, it's various things. I just want to highlight that we're experiencing great growth right now, and people recognize us as a place to be. So I want to talk here about, we are currently in a very good financial position. This gives us the ability to take on healthy debt to improve our community. Right now, we're essentially debt-free. The bit of debt we have is funding the PUC, which is funded through the water rates. So we've got a very small amount of debt. Now, when I look at the slide there, the province said, based on our rules, we could take on upwards of $600 million in debt. And I'm not suggesting that's what we do, but I'm suggesting we have the capacity. The province, they would say we could take upwards of $900 million in debt. So, for perspective, we have zero, and we're looking at all these opportunities for investment in our community. So we're essentially debt-free. We have strong reserves. So we've been done very good there. So we should be looking at borrowing funds to strategically invest in Chatham-Kent. I'll give some examples. Recently, we talked about gravel roads. So we could put in $2 million a year of gravel roads, or we could say, you know what, we're going to invest in a lot of roads. And we talked about talking about the advantages of that is stepping forward that we can realize current dollars on it, not waiting 10 years for the price, and we have the use of the asset. So the other things I suggest we start looking at is the Tilbury Stormwater Plan. For years we've been saving up through reserves, but if we keep waiting, in order to have the money in the bank to do that, we are looking at the next, who knows how long. That's an opportunity to say, how do we step up? The Wallaceburg Southside Plan, we went through a lot of, for 6 months or a year, we did the planning of that and said, you know what, we need to develop this. Again, this is an opportunity to look and say, how do we invest in our community? How do we invest in Wallaceburg? PUC plan improvements. That's another thing we look at, is that we need to plant the seed now for that future growth. So those are opportunities, and we say many communities in Ontario have debt. When you look at the bigger cities, they all carry debt, but it's to carry long-term strategic assets that have future benefit. I would never suggest going on borrowing to take care of current needs, but borrowing takes those assets that are going to be there for the next 50 years and has future taxpayers pay for it through the debt, through the repayment of the debt, through the taxes. So if we borrow something against a 50-year asset, taxpayers for the next 50 years are paying for it. And right now, as interest rates are going to be lowering. So we have lower interest rates going forward. The borrowing for future, I talked about that. So invest today. I hear a lot of people say, you know what, we just can't invest in assets. The tariffs are up and we're in hard times. Let's not invest. Well, when you look at the federal government, the provincial government, they take the opposite twist and they say, you know what, we need to invest. We need to stimulate the economy. There's going to be people unemployed. Well, let's create jobs that are going to employ them. Let's look at the whole concept of current dollars and putting in place there that we stimulate the economy through there. So this is not the time to say, you know what, we're not going to spend, we're going to wait, because we can wait until it's really expensive to say, all right, it's a hot in the marketplace, it's going to cost more. So these are opportunities to actually start investing. So with that, in summary, I'm calling on for a tax increase in the 2026 of around 3%, pending infrastructure investments and funding per upper levels of government. I'm calling for increased investment all across Chatham-Kent. I want to grow our community, not just maintain it. I will not support the closure of facilities or services, whether they be rural or urban. We must protect our rural communities' access to important services and facilities. We are very solid financially, and it's time to begin taking on healthy debt to find the growth in our community to ensure we're a great place to live for years to come. Looking for strategic investments. So the council, how can we work together to fund the growth in our community? I want this to be done openly and transparently. I'm asking council to do their homework and return to this topic at our next meeting on April 28th with specific ideas and advice to me as I prepare my direction to staff on the forming of the 2026 annual budget update. As you all know, with strong mayor powers, I am mandated to provide written direction to staff on forming the 2026 annual budget update, and I want your input. Thank you. We'll go on to item 19, Finance, Budget, Information Technology, and Transformation.
19A, Council Financial Advocacy to Upper Level Governments. We have a presentation by Gord Quinton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fourth presentation of the night, and second by an accountant, so let's go. Wanted to talk to council tonight about council financial advocacy, and it's not that we aren't currently doing it. We of course always advocate for funding from upper levels of government. We have many of you councillors sit on committees, associations, and the mayor is busy working with the provincial and federal government ministers all the time advocating for our municipality. I hate to say it, but it's not working that well. And it ties directly into the mayor's speech that he just presented. We do need some financial help over the next decade to get done what needs to be done in Chatham-Kent. We do have aging assets. We need to look at replacing them. We need to invest in Chatham-Kent, and we need a partner from upper levels to invest with us. It's not all on the local taxpayers. And we just went through a provincial election. The Conservatives have a new mandate provincially, and we're undergoing a federal election, and we'll have the results of that at late in the night on April 28th, our next council meeting. That now, as those new governments develop their goals for the next 4 years, we want municipal funding to be high on that list. Unfortunately, the Tangerine Man's tariff policies have been taking the highlights, and you haven't really heard municipal funding discussed in these campaigns lately. So anyway, on with the presentation. 5 key concepts, going to cover where we are at with current level funding, infrastructure investments, comments on the property tax systems in Ontario, financial advocacy, and a council call to action. So upper level funding, you know, you talk to the old timers, and I'm getting to be one of them. They talk about in the good old days, we would get a lot of funding from provincial and federal governments. If you think of the Ontario investments, lotteries were created to invest in recreation and educational facilities. And so 30, 40 years ago, often we would get 75 to 90% grants on a lot of our assets, and even our road assets. If you probably not on a gravel road, but on a bridge structure, for example, often you would get 75+% funding on every asset that we built or rebuilt. Now, on average, we get 10 to 25%. Not to say there isn't a certain project here and there we get much more than that, but on average, we're not getting near as much as we are today, and it's and you add how the costs have gone up over that time as well. The exponential cost of these assets. So where you had perhaps 75 plus funding on an asset when it was originally built in the 60s, now it's at its end of its life, needing to be replaced, and we're having to fund 90 to 100% of the replacement cost on property taxpayers, and it just isn't working. So, so two main concepts here. Property tax system is broken in Ontario. This isn't a new statement. I think most treasurers agree with that. Sorry, I got something going on that screen there. And it's different in different provinces. In Ontario, we're not only are we looking after our road assets and our recreation assets, we also have had a lot of things downloaded to it, whether it's the other 50% of land amulets or the long-term care homes. Affordable housing was downloaded to us in 2001, but the funding hasn't kept up to keep up with the population growth with new builds of affordable units. And it just keeps on hitting us one little thing at a time. Almost every council meeting, there's something that's being downloaded to us for us to pick up the cost on. And that the system is broken, and it is different in other provinces across Canada. It's of what the local taxpayer has to pay for. So municipalities in Ontario need a new revenue tool, and you've been hearing that from people such as AMO for a decade. Yeah, you used to hear there was a campaign for a while that we should get a share of the HST. If you remember, HST used to be 15%, then dropped to 14 and to 13. Wouldn't it have been wonderful if one of those percents would have been just slided over to municipalities about a decade ago and been predictable funding for infrastructure? But it didn't happen. The upper levels have reap the rewards of, as inflation happening, their funding, income tax and such are based on a percentage of income. So as inflation and incomes doubled over the last decade, they're getting a lot more money. But we have to ask our property taxpayers for inflation increases annually in part of that budget process. We need something else. I'm not saying it's part of the HST or what it is, but we need more annual predictable funding that we can rely on coming from upper levels. So what can council do? And like I said, I know you're doing a lot on this already, but council can impact our future property tax increases, particularly by working very closely with our local MPPs and our federal, I put MPs because we currently have two, but we'll have one after the election. Really demonstrating to them the urgent and long-term need for reliable funding to assist municipal infrastructure requirements. They can't act when they don't know, and I think that they really need to be educated. And each of you have relationships with MPPs and our MP, and this I think we could, by working more closely with them, inviting them to council meetings when we have an important topic to talk about, really trying to demonstrate that we are funding our share. The amount of money that we've invested in infrastructure, we now invest $80 million a year in infrastructure in our annual budgets. What did we start with Chatham-Kent? About $1 million in 1998. That's all because back everything was about 90% funded before. So we've been able to achieve a lot on our own, but we need help. Give you an example on the PUC side. The last grant that was received is when we built the Richtown sewage plant in 2014, I believe, where we got $1 million. Nothing since then for infrastructure at the PUC. How can that be possible? It's just mind-boggling that we're not getting recognized at the provincial level. So what am I recommending? Like I say, you're doing a lot already, but just more of it, and maybe in some different ways. So getting much more active to get the message out that Chatham-Kent needs financial help for infrastructure. Keep presentations to AMO, Roma, FCM. They're great tools, but come with the facts and really have a good program to present to them when they have a conference or any time you can get in front of a minister to talk about things. Council resolutions are great. I think we need to make sure that it's not just a resolution that gets a letter sent off and no follow-up, nothing happening. I think I'm developing those notice of motions into having a lot of details and information to support those arguments. And then perhaps personal meetings with MPPs and to go over them and try to get their attention. Social media is something we didn't have a decade ago. This is very powerful about getting these issues out to all our constituents, to have them calling their MPPs and MPs saying, we really need help here in Chatham-Kent for this issue. And so educating the constituents through social media, I think, is a key thing that it's a lot easier for politicians in here to do than it is for staff. Advocating for the new revenue framework, I've already talked about that. Shared objectives, housing is the perfect example, particularly the federal government, the past one, and likely whoever wins April 28th, housing is going to be a key issue for them. It's a key issue for us too. Your budget builds about 6 or 7 social housing units a year. That, I think somebody said today we have 1,000 on a wait list. 6 or 7 doesn't do it. We need that 90% funding on many of our affordable housing projects to be coming from the federal, mainly the federal, but also provincial governments. And so they're shared objectives. It's great that we administratively, closest to the people can run them here. We can design, build what the community wants, but we need the funding to come from upper levels to help us. Strategic directions, I think it's great how the last couple councils, we're really getting our key council strategic directions, but we need to ensure that the funding resources match the pace of those. And United Council message, when we can agree on a project, we need to be unified in that message to the specifically to the MPs and MPPs on exactly what are we asking for with that project. Are we asking for 50% funding, exactly what the dollar amount is, why it's important to them to invest in Chatham-Kent, and get that message out. So summary slide, I'm asking for council to get more involved and to loudly and proudly advocate for provincial and federal funding for Chatham-Kent infrastructure. We can't do it all on the backs of the property taxpayers, and it's as costs have been escalating. This is the largest part of your budget over the next decade. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Sakatchi and Councillor Anderson, can I get you to put on the floor, please?
So moved, Mayor Caniff.
And so seconded.
Okay, Councillor Sakatchi?
Thank you. Actually, Gord, I really appreciate the fact that, you touched on some of those extremely key points that we need to start collectively doing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm just going to ask a very straightforward question. Maybe it's to yourself or to Mayor Caniff or the CAO. But I'm just trying to, what I've tried to grasp and wrap my head around since I've been on council about 7 years is the fact that why in Chatham-Kent we continuously draw the short end of the stick all the time. I know that our general manager of health has had some significant great proposals that were sent out that we were denied, whether it comes to the transitional housing, whether it comes to the increase in homelessness prevention. And you look all around us that there's these communities that are experiencing the exact same things are getting significantly more money. And I just want to know, through the conversations you've had with our MPPs or MPs, as well as the upper levels of government, maybe to Mayor Caniff, why we're continuously being declined for very good grant applications and very good funding applications. Goes all the way back to the arena when we tried to get an arena 7 years ago. And I just think it's important for the community to know, if there's a reason, why are we continually being declined in some significant excellent funds and grant applications.
Thank you, the Mayor. I'll start off and then that's the great question of the I can't give you a specific answer, but I can only give opinions, I guess. Firstly, we do excellent applications. It's not a lack of the administrative work and the hours of work that's put in by administration for these applications is enormous. That's where reliable, predictable funding would be nice, because we wouldn't have to be begging. You know, you've all heard the analogy of 444 little birds chirping up at the province asking for money all the time. It's not. I think we just need to do a better job of the advocacy part of explaining why they need to be at the table and part of the solution. But it is extremely puzzling. You mentioned the housing ones recently, homelessness funding and things. It is very hard to take, and it's very frustrating on staff to go through all the work and learn that another community gets $4 million for a project and we get 100,000 or something. Mr. Dubin?
Yeah, if I can, through your worship, I will say that it's all a matter of perspective. While I 100% agree that there are times that we don't seem to get anything from the province. We haven't been very successful on a lot of our grant applications, but I sit around a lot of tables with other CAOs, and many of them feel exactly like Councillor Sakachi does, which is, how come we don't get anything? And if you look back at Gord's presentation, when there was a time that you were getting 90, 80, 75%, anything in the 25s, 30 makes everyone feel that they're not getting anything. I do think we can do more advocacy, and you know that. I've talked about creating a position that'll focus a little bit more on advocacy. I think that's important. Part of the challenge is the province doesn't always tell us why we have been denied an application. I will say that there are some things that we need to pay attention to. One is the asset management plans. We really have to make sure, this applies to the PUC as well, we need to make sure that our asset management plans are done properly, on time, because while the ministers may tell you one thing, the people who are actually making the decisions, or at least advising the ministers about who to support, are looking at those documents. And so that's very important. When we come to you and say, you know, the importance of shovel-ready land, that's another thing. We have been turned down in a number of cases because we don't have shovel-ready land and other municipalities do. So there are a few things that we can do to be a little bit better, but I can't explain why places like Sarnia have received so much more homelessness funding than us. I don't get it, and there is no real explanation. So I think we can work harder on it, and I think Gord has given us a path forward at least to try to do that.
And I'll add to that, you know, that is the $50 million question. Why is it we aren't getting funding? And I hear that from all the municipalities. I sit in the Ontario Big City Mayors. A great example is when we got turned down back for the arena. And we're all talking about around the table, and one community puts up their hand in GTA, I don't remember which one, says, we only got 3 projects. And then Ottawa puts up their hand and says, well, that's great, because we didn't get any. We got nothing. And so it's all around, and I wish I could say there's some formula. I don't know what it is. We have to keep working and working hard, but what Gord said is, we want general funding. I would love to see them say, you know what, here's a $20 billion, whatever, X dollars, whatever it is, and you're going to get allocated based on number of people, and so everybody gets it. So it's not as though some communities get it for whatever reason, I'm not even going to try and guess of what reasons it happens. But then everybody gets it. So you say, okay, it's a formula driven. We're just as well off based on a per capita basis as anybody else. But we need to keep working hard because that's going to make the difference. And as Gord pointed out, like in his presentation, we talked about, it used to be 75 to 90%. Now it's 10 to 25%. It's more and more critical. And this is why we've been looking at these increases in taxes every year, is because we're not being funded the way we should be. So I'm hopeful that over the next little while, we collectively, as all municipalities, and hopefully Chatham-Kent particularly, will be awarded funds. And that's why we talked about the 3% increase. That I'm hopeful that happens, but it's going to be a lot more difficult to get there if the province and the feds don't step up and put the money in where they should be. So,
Thanks. Just in closing, I notice a lot of the recommendations are directed specifically to council with a little bit of administration on there. One thing I'm not going to ask for an amendment, just a comment to the CAO, is that we do have a very excellent communication team here at the municipality. I think that it's important for us from an administrative side to actually provide that information more regularly to our constituents on the funding mechanisms that were in the past, as well as what they should be asking from their MPPs and MPs, and not just through council, but the advocacy that can be done at a different level. Because obviously we always hear what we can do better and what we're not funding, but we are restricted without seeing 10, 15, 20% increases in taxes of what we can do. So I think that we could do a better job from a communication standpoint to put that message out there, so it's not just council advocating, but the community advocating as well.
If I can, just real quickly, I will, certainly when we were waiting to hear on the support for Wheatley, we did pull back a little bit, only because that was such a big number, and we wanted to make sure that the province was going to support us. That was over, 12 million was the last payment, but even before that. So we purposely didn't do a campaign to sort of challenge the province on their support because we were waiting for that money to be paid out. But now, I hate to use the cliche, the gloves are off, but we've seen what has happened with other municipalities, and we're just not getting the amount we should get. I do want to highlight one of them in Mr. Quinton's report, and it's on the motion there, and that is the OSIF funding. $10 million is the cap that the province has put on that fund, but when we follow the province's criteria, not our criteria, but the province's criteria, we should be getting, and these are old numbers, but the last information was around 25.5 million. So they capped it at 10. I get it, but at no time has there been an increase to reflect the inflation. It's so far behind what we should actually be getting. Imagine the discussions we'd be having about what we could do in this community if we were getting an additional 15.5 million. Now, I know some of that would go to PUC, but we would be talking about a lot of things very differently if that money came our way. So that's one of the things we really need to advocate. And I will suggest that sometimes you got to pick and choose your battles. No point pushing for 100 grand when you've got 15.5 million out there, that we have a pretty good argument for why we should have it. Because it's their own criteria that actually raises it to that number, not something Mr. Quinton came up with. So.
Yes, just to note, that is annual funding. That's not a one-time fund. That's $15.5 million per year. So that's
After.
certainly that is in the top of my priority, as far as if we can get that solves a lot of infrastructure issues to get that. And just to note, we are only one of 3 municipalities that are capped. There's only 3 in the entire province. Us, Sudbury, and Thunder Bay are the only 3 that have that artificial cap. And it was put on. I've met with ministers, I've met with the premier, I've met with a bunch of people. They hear and they understand. So that's where I'm hopeful that the next budget, they recognize that. So, you can only do what you can do, but that is huge, absolutely huge. And that's where if we can recognize that, that makes that 3% pretty easy to achieve if you get those type of numbers. But I don't want to promise or anything. We're working, but we collectively need to work together. Gord?
Yeah, and since we're talking about number C, I wanted to talk about number D and why that's there. Canada Community Building Fund, it used to be called the federal gas tax. Think of what the price of gas was in 2008 when this was implemented. We got around $6 million then. We're getting $6.5 million now. 15 years have gone by. Think of what the cost of our infrastructure replacement of a bridge has happened. It's probably tripled in that same time. And so you talk about the 15 million from the province on OSIF, but we should also probably getting another 15 million annual dollars from the federal government as well. What would our community be different if both federal and provincial governments actually indexed their grants and, to match the municipal inflation rate, not just CPI, but the municipal inflation rate that we're getting on our infrastructure projects?
All right, I've got 6 speakers, so this is a hot topic. I like it. So Councillor Harrigan, followed by Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you. So I just wanted to maybe make a quick comment, and then I have a question around next steps. So the comment that I was going to make, rather than make the gloves off that our CAO mentioned, but they're certainly off, is a bit of a strike while the iron's hot, right? Because you know, I was really pleased to see Minister Jones named to the agriculture, food, and agribusiness portfolio, and that's something very new to Chatham-Kent, to have a member of cabinet that is representing our community. And I feel like that local MPP, alongside MPP Pinsino, who has sat around this table and knows very clearly what some Chatham-Kent issues are, offer a good opportunity. So I didn't want that to go without wayside. I'm assuming that we have sent more than just the text and the congratulatory letters, right? And then we have that strong relationship with the Honourable Minister. The question that I have, perhaps to Gordon, perhaps our CAO, is like, how do we operationalize this, right? Do I call you when I say, hey, Trevor and I are meeting for coffee next week in Wheatley, let me know what key messages I have? Or do you call me to say, Melissa, this is an issue, it's a West Kent issue, we'd love for you and Councillor Anderson to attend with us, and here are some key messages? Because I think what we don't want to do, as was kind of alluded to, is have, you know, 18 elected officials go all out and start knocking on doors, and all of a sudden people's inboxes are flooded and we all have different messaging. So how do we do this in a unified voice, being loud and proud?
Thank you for the question. Very important is that we focus on some of the big things, that most bang for our buck. We can't ask for everything. It's the birds chirping again. We got to focus on some of the biggest needs, and the OSIF capping, for example, is a prime example of just that one thing of lifting a cap would totally change our community for the next decade. It's $150 million over the next decade at least coming in. I think as far as advocacy, maybe Michael wants to talk about the deputy CEO position.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Your Worship. I think that, well, council knows that I'm looking at developing a position that will focus, part of the job's focus will be on government relations and on advocacy. And I think it really needs to be through that one individual. Now, the good news is that we, well, a recent example, I think Councillor Story was attending a meeting with Councillor Anderson, and they let us know that they were meeting with a particular minister. And what we did is we shared a copy of the brief that we had that had all the information that I think helps with that particular, I won't go into the details, but helps with that particular topic that we were trying to raise some awareness of. So that's something that we can do. And if we can have, you know, if we have an individual who can sort of steward all that, I think we'll be much better at it. But absolutely, if anybody's meeting with anyone, reach out to me for now, and we'll get you whatever information you need. In some cases, you may need one of us to come along with you. We're happy to do that too. You know, I do think it's important, though, that we don't have 6 or 7 people meeting with the same minister. I would rather just arrange a meeting with the minister and a group of councillors, because then I think the argument could get, and the advocacy gets a little bit diluted. So I think it's important that we coordinate our efforts. I can tell you that the mayor and I meet, for the most part, once every 2 months with Councillor, well, I called him Councillor Pinsino, with MPP Pinsino and with Minister Jones. And we talk about some of these ongoing issues. We're regularly advocating. They're fully up to speed on OSIF and some of the things that actually Mr. Quinton has presented to you. So, and we provide them with whatever information they need. So I would encourage you as councillors to reach out, and once we get going with a little bit more of a formal government relations position, then we can come up with a more formal operational plan for what you've asked. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you.
Councillor B. McGregor, followed by Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Appreciate the presentation. I think it's hard to overstate the impact of this issue, and I know that sometimes presentations like this don't get a ton of attention in the public, but I hope that this one does, and I particularly look at the recommendations and think about the effort and volume of input and feedback we get, particularly from interest groups in the community around funding of infrastructure. And I know that we take that feedback to heart, and I hope there's an opportunity to harness some of that. And I see one member of the KFA here, so I hope that he's listening as well, that we can take some of that energy and push that in a direction that can have what's a pretty substantial impact on the way that we fund infrastructure. And I think it's really interesting to see this report following our infrastructure spend report from the last council meeting that really showed how much we are spending every year, where that money is going, and really the value of our assets that we have to maintain. And trying to get a handle on the scale of this, if we think about that 25-year change from the 75 to 90% funding to now, if we're lucky, the 10 to 25% funding, like what's that gap in a dollar amount in an annual budget?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm going to give a weird answer for this. I'm going to leave you in suspense to April 28th on that answer, because Sean Hilderly is doing an excellent presentation on asset management plan, and that will be highlighting our gap over the next decade, updated to the latest figures of what it's cost to repair a bridge or a kilometer of roads, but the number has grown greatly since the last time it's been presented to council.
Yeah, and I think that'll be very helpful to see, and I think it gives some context to the scale of other decisions that we spend a lot of time and effort making when we're talking about tax ratios and trying to figure out the right way to fund this community. And we really look at what the change has been over 25 years, and it's not municipal mismanagement. It's not that we're underinvesting. It's that input from other levels of government has drastically changed, and it's been our responsibility to pick that up. And the outcome of that is we hear community frustration, like Councillor Sakachi mentioned. If you spend time in recreational infrastructure, everywhere to the west of us, everywhere to the east of us, in the past 30 years have got new facilities, and from no fault of our own, we've applied and have not been successful. So it's interesting to see again in the attached report. I know it wasn't in the presentation, but the list of grants that we didn't get, and that's just from 1 year. So I think it's I'm glad that we have that information. I hope and expect that's something we can look at annually too, so that we kind of have a bit of a running tally. And I know that staff have done a really good job, particularly in the past year, to start pointing these things out so we can look at them every council meeting.
I would add that this is not an exhaustive list. We do get lots of other grants for services, some predictable annual grants for 20,000 here, 30,000 there. But I just wanted to point out some of the larger ones that haven't been successful in the last year.
Thank you.
Councillor Story, followed by Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Gord, for listing all of those ideas and suggestions. This is the type of work that I really enjoy as a councillor, and one reason why I asked for council support in running for FCM, and I'm also now on the Good Roads Board. But I just wanted to maybe build on what you have said, because I think you really hit the nail on the head about the critical nature of a lot of these associations. And just to give you a quick, I think now is a reasonable time to share some of the work that FCM is doing. Because of the election, this is a critical time, as we've already mentioned, and then of course after the election, which will be sooner than later, and FCM is working with all the major parties right now. They have both, official channels and back channels and those different types of communication roles. And I think, and they're working on what's called the National Prosperity Partnership, which is directly reinforcing what you have shared tonight, that we do need a reset of what municipal federal relationship and funding, how that looks. And also, I'm the vice chair of the Election Readiness Working Group with FCM. We met today, we're meeting tomorrow to prepare a lot of that verbiage for municipal advocates, both council and otherwise, across the country. So I'm happy to share that with everyone. It's on their website. if you're active on social media as an elected official, or even, or as staff in that capacity, you can share any number of social media posts that FCM has on their website to reinforce what you've shared tonight. And focusing primarily on, Canada-US tariffs, economic resilience, housing and homelessness, thriving rural communities and public safety, infrastructure, and climate resilience. So that lines up with, virtually everything we talk about at council almost every week. So just to let you know that those resources are out there from FCM as well. And if you want, I'm happy to send that to anyone around the Horseshoe if you want to take a look. And it does take time to build a lot of these relationships. And we base our council relationships, I know those of us that are on these different associations, as you go to these conferences, as you go to advocacy days, as you have these meetings, you reinforce those connections. And we're building those relationships based on the efforts of staff. So it's very important to reinforce that the work that I do at FCM, for example, I can't do that without the input and the support from staff and the work that you do to build that foundation. Like traveling to Washington, I was there a few weeks ago with FCM to advocate with our counterparts on local government on tariffs. And Councillor Anderson was there not long after me with the St. Lawrence and Great Lakes Initiative. We've got obviously Councillor McGrail on Roma and Councillor McGregor on Alpha. And now with me on Good Roads as well. So we've got all these opportunities and we've got great people in place on those boards and associations to share those messages. I do think that
30 seconds.
Oh, okay, thank you. We have these opportunities, and I know FCM was a driver behind the Canada Community Gas Tax. So those relationships are really important. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen overnight or as quickly as we like to. So I want to reinforce my full support of this and would love to continue to see that grow, and I'm happy to throw my support about in any way I possibly can. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor McGrail.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Gord, I certainly appreciate this, and I definitely agree with your recommendations that it's always good to get suggestions from administration of things that we can do to advocate for more funding. And certainly, I'm going to echo what Councillor Story has said, that we do have a number of councillors around this table that do sit on various boards that do get that opportunity at that level to advocate different ministers of different things for funding. What I will maybe say back is I think that there's also an opportunity for there to be more support from administration at these types of functions, especially at our AGMs. I've now been to 3 Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities initiatives, and I've gone by myself. I believe Councillor Story was by herself at FCM. At Roma, Councillor McGrail was there with 2 other councillors and Ryan Brown. At Good Roads, Ryan Brown was the only one there with myself and Councillor Story. So I think that there is an opportunity for administration. And when we do come together and we come as a united front, not just as councillors, but as a municipality, and we put more delegations out there, then we do have more of a say. And I think that those types of events are where we do actually get to do that. I think that AMO is great, but it's very much saturated for all municipalities of Ontario, where Roma is rural, Good Roads, let's talk about how many roads we have. And when we talk about the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative, we are right along the water basin. So I think that there's definitely an opportunity for all of us to come together, and going to these types of events and AGMs is definitely something that I would like to say back, that having supportive administration there, yes, we can say a lot as board members at the council level and speaking on behalf of that board, but having supportive administration at those functions is imperative to getting that messaging across to those upper levels of government.
Councillor McGrail, followed by Councillor Hall.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I agree wholeheartedly, and I've heard from a certain provincial minister that said, get your stuff together, right? That was a very clear message, have shovel ready, he said other words than stuff together, but I agree. In those that same minister said, Chatham-Kent, I know you guys are doing good on your numbers and your housing and growing, and it stops there. And I agree with you. Why then? It's like, okay, but we need help, and then I'm like, well, any help you can give us, what I mean? We got there. So I really like this, and as I said, as a representative on Roma, it was like sometimes I have to sit there and I have to represent my whole zone. So when I bring something to Roma, it's gotta affect the whole rural Ontario. But I like that, you know, we have a lot of, through Roma, through SEM, through AMO, we talk about the same subjects, right? So I really didn't know about the cap, and there's only three communities in Ontario that has this cap. Well, that's really interesting. So when we start talking about that funding, it's like, yeah, but we should also get rid of this cap. But that's the information we need to come with us. And I can provide, you know, these are our hot topics. Let's talk about that. Give me some little tidbits where I can help Chatham-Kent, but the whole rural Ontario, and get that piece across. That's what I need from administration, and I need that communication, I think. And maybe that's, you know, a commitment between me sitting on Roma and administration, is to after have, because I have a meeting, well, it's every other month now, but it was every month, to sit down and let's debrief it, and let's see how we can twist, our agenda items, that I can input some more stuff, because I need that help to get my facts straight, right, my messaging correct, and to make it loud and clear. And I think that I will give my commitment to administration and to the municipality that I would sit down, and I'm pretty sure, it's vice versa, and let's work together. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Yeah, definitely echo a lot of my colleagues' comments here tonight, agree with these recommendations. So I think my comments here kind of piggyback off what Councillor McGregor was saying too, but and I'm not sure if it will require an additional point or an amendment, or if we can just get this information provided. But anyway, that'll be my question, but I'll just give a bit of context here. So I know we have a lot of very dedicated and passionate members of our community in the public. Many of them rally together, they meet in the community, they hold town hall meetings, they different groups, and discuss certain topics in Chatham-Kent. And I know from experience in Wallaceburg, we have a lot of community members that rally together, when there's a gap or there's a fight to be won or there's a service that's been threatened, and this goes back years. But I think this issue here that we're facing, it should be one of those fights that everyone gets behind, not just everyone around this table. So I'm wondering if staff can bring, maybe give some advice to council on how, we can bring in our communities and our members of our public and these groups that want to get involved to help with this advocacy, so that, it's not 18 voices, putting, something to our MP or MPP, but, maybe if staff can give us some advice on how, or communications on how we can, get 100,000 voices instead of just 18 when we're doing some of this advocacy work. So I'll leave that with you. I don't know.
Well, I just have a comment. It relates to number C, the $10 million cap on OSIF. The KFA did work with us to bring this issue to their Ontario annual meeting, actually, in January, to get another voice, because it impacts rural infrastructure too. You're right. Like we are doing that when we can, but I think we need to. We hear complaints from the community. We also need the community to step up with us, with all of council and staff, to get that message either through social media or directly to MPPs that we need help in certain areas.
Yeah, I just want to add one last comment here, is that a lot of municipalities that we're competing against for these grants have full-time people. That's what their job is government relations and doing these type of things. So that's why it's so imperative that we come together and we have somebody that is dedicating a lot of their time to coordinate our efforts. We all want to make a difference here. Imagine if we're all coordinated and doing all these things together. That's why it's so imperative, and I'm hopeful in the next little while that we'll make that happen and get the advocacy, taking it from here up to that next level with what we can do. All right, with that, seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0.
Item 20, Infrastructure and Engineering Services.
20A, Road Safety Assessment, Kent Bridge Road and Ridgeline Intersection, Community of Howard.
Councillor Wright and Councillor McDonald, can I get
I'll move that.
this on the floor, please?
And seconded.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I only had one question to this. What kind of a timeline are we looking to get this done? I don't know if that could be answered tonight or.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Edward Sol, General Manager of Infrastructure and Engineering Services. The majority of this work actually is most related to signage and some improvements in the area. There will be some electrical we'll have to bring for the flashing lights. So I would anticipate once we get through this winter that this will probably occur in the next 3 to 4 months at the outset.
Thank you, Edward. This has been quite a crash zone over the years, and it's really needed done. When the public come forward with 660 signed petitions, and then the council supported it the last time, it's really great that staff is moving forward with this, and we're getting this done. The public's going to appreciate it, and I thank you for it.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
Sorry, all votes are in. Motion passes 16-0. 20C, Chatham-Kent Municipal Airport updates.
Councillor Doyle and Councillor Story, can I put this on the floor, please?
I would move that.
Happy to second.
Councillor Doyle, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I just have a couple quick questions, and then I will happily move the recommendation after that, if that's all right. So the first question, just looks like we're possibly going to be building a bunch of new hangars while also possibly moving the airport. So I guess my question was, why would we build the new hangars if we might be moving the airport?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the question. Ryan Brown, Director of Public Works. So it is kind of a comprehensive report. There's a lot of things going on at the airport, and that's why we wanted to bring this to you. The two issues, one is very short term and one's more longer term. So the answer with why are we building more hangars, the municipality's been supportive of growth at the airport long term. As you can see in the report, we have had a lot of growth recently. And the feasibility study talking about potentially relocating the airport among some other options, such as ceasing operations in the far future or do nothing, are also going to be studied. But these are really long-term initiatives. Luckily, moving an airport or expanding a landfill are very long-term projects. It could take 5-10 years to even do the design approvals of any new airport, right? So these are really long-term solutions. So just like in other, policy realms of the municipality, if we're going to make a fundamental shift in policy at the airport that say, hey, we don't want to grow because we are going to move in the future, that's something that would take some time to implement, communicate, get feedback to investors who may want to build. Very similar how to when a new building code comes in. There's lots of time, there's lots of warning that changes are coming, and then we say, okay, on this date going forward, and we may see that, but to summarize, the plan is the plan until it isn't. And what we're asking is to move forward with the plan as we always have. And if the feasibility study says that we're going to make some policy change at the airport, that would be a much more long-term solution.
Okay, thank you very much. And then what's kind of like our timeline where we need to make a decision by? Like, do we have a rough timeline for that?
I believe the landfill is looking to have us do the study and come back with decisions for council, hopefully within a year. Because, as I said, approvals of any changes to the landfill could take many, many years to complete. And they can't do that until the municipality makes some decisions about how this might work. So it's kind of, you have to do that first before even a 5-year approval process could start. So we're hoping to come back to council with the outcome of that study in the next year.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll let anyone else who wants to chat talk, and then we can move the recommendations after that. Thanks.
Councillor Story.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Ryan, for the report. I had the same questions as Councillor Doyle about the need to do this extra investment if it is going to be moving in the near to medium future. I noticed there's a reference to the new maintenance building. And is that being fully funded by our municipal budget? And have we factored in the tariff impacts on the new construction of any of those buildings? Or it's just one building, I guess? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the question. Overall, as mentioned in the report, most of the investment at the airport is done privately. When someone builds a hangar, they lease the lands from us, and then the construction is totally on their cost. The maintenance building, I did link a bunch of reports in the background if anybody listening or council would like to read more information. But we had a municipal hangar, and we leased that for over $1 million. And so that $1 million was put into the airport reserve, and at that time was tagged to build a smaller, newer maintenance facility. And so to answer your question, yes, it's coming through the municipal budget, but it is actually funded from a long-term lease we did of the previous building. So that money's in reserves to cover all this cost. The second part of your question about tariffs, sorry. So the design is currently being completed by the consultant. We're hoping to have that done in the next month. And so we had estimates at the time of the long-term lease. Obviously, through COVID, inflation has gone up on construction. So the engineer would be doing a new estimate, which at this time would now potentially include tariffs. If you're building a building on steel or those kind of things that are impacted. So we would have those updated budgets before we ever let out a tender for construction.
Okay, thanks. And you're going to bring some of this back to budget in the fall when we look at this again. Would we consider looking at, I know there's a mention of a proposed fuel truck that's something that users of the airport have identified as something that would be a useful addition to the site. Could we include a full cost recovery model for items like that when it comes back to us?
Regarding the fuel truck, there is a section on that in the report, and actually we've been doing a lot of work on the airport asset management plan. So currently, fuel infrastructure at the airport is funded by, we get a royalty. So the operator under contract sells fuel, we get a royalty for every liter that goes through the pump. Currently, it's 10 cents, and that, I believe in the report, I say brings in about $25,000 a year. And so we believe that is ample funds to fund that infrastructure fully, like a full cost recovery model on that fee that's added to the fuel. So then adding a fuel truck, part of the business case, and like you said, we'll come back to the budget process, is that the additional fuel sold would bring in more royalties when those contracts expire, and we can potentially renegotiate that fee. Maybe it's, goes up with inflation to fully fund that infrastructure. That is the point, to try to make these services as low as cost as possible.
Okay, then last two questions are probably related, but I'm not as familiar with airport management, but do airports, generally speaking, break even in terms of operations? Or does our airport break even? Or if it doesn't, do we anticipate it breaking even in the near to medium term?
There's a lot of different models of airports, so I can't speak to the financial models of all of them, but I can speak to Chatham-Kent's. And so overall, we spend about $450,000 is the total operational cost of the airport for a year, and there's about at this time about $200,000 that come in as lease fees, as farm rent, as fuel sales, and so currently, let's just say 50% is recouped through fees. As the airport is growing, as you can see in the report, we add 10 more hangars this summer. Those numbers get even better, and the municipal portion is continues to get smaller. There are privately owned airports that are not subsidized by municipal government, so I imagine there is a model. But there are other airports like ours, and as also attached in the report was a presentation I did here at council about some of the societal benefits that come from having an airport as well, so that for some of the dollars, even though compared to the budget are relatively low, there are societal benefits that we get, such as organ transfer, Coast Guard rescue operations that Chatham-Kent residents are getting for their tax dollars.
Yeah, thank you. I think looking at our assets and something that's only 50% funded, there's pros and cons to having that on our budget line, especially as we move forward with some of the things that, Mayor Caniff also mentioned in his budget update. So I noticed in London, it's a nonprofit that runs theirs. In Windsor, it's an arm's length corporation from the municipality. So when it comes back to budget, I know there are multiple reports coming back on this airport. I wouldn't mind seeing something along the lines of what it would look like if we perhaps mitigated our own risk and looked at other operating options that may not be municipally run. But we can, I wouldn't mind seeing something like that in future reports as well, so. That makes
Through
sense.
you,
Thank
Your Worship, I think the intent of the feasibility study is to look at potential different governance options for airports, but you're right, it's different right across the board, and a lot of it just has to do with, you know, whether it's going to generate business, whether it's an economic development driver, is it used more for private purposes? So that's something we can have the consultant help us with.
That'd be great, thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0. 20D, Streetlight Maintenance Integris Service Level Agreement.
Councillor Story and Councillor B. McGregor.
Happy to move, Mr. Mayor.
So seconded?
Councillor Story, go ahead.
Just had a couple questions about the streetlights. Now, you're mentioning that in the report it states we're moving from a 3-year to a 6-year term, a service level agreement. Is that to lock in prices and that we have now versus waiting for inevitable ebbs and flows of whatever the economy is going to do in the next 6 years? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the question. Yes, that's the intent. We've had, since Integris was formed, multiple rounds of different lengths of contracts, but, you know, through our multi-year budgeting and through some of the price increases we've seen on other construction contracts, when we did start talking with Integris about renewing the contract, we felt that recommending a 6-year deal at 3% each year is pretty good for construction labor. And so that's why we're here before you recommending a longer contract to provide stability to our multi-year budgeting.
Okay, that makes sense. In terms of that 3% increase on labor and equipment fees over each year, does that mean that that is a compounded increase over the 6 years? So it's actually over the term, it'll be an 18% increase? Or is it more of just the simple 3% each year?
It's the former, which is, you know, for example, if labor was $100 an hour this year, $103 next year, $106 the year after, like 3% compounding each year, which is, you know, pretty standard with a lot of, say you have inflation on employment contracts, you have inflation on vehicles, that may or may not be linked to CPI. And as we've seen in the construction sector, the increases have sometimes been much larger than 3% year over year.
Okay, so that just goes back to the locking in of those costs. I see there's a fairly substantial cost increase in 2024 versus the previous 2 years, and a slightly less but still higher in 2025. Could you give us a little more information about why that is?
Yes, and if you look at the report, the financial table, I tried to put in a lot of complicated information into a simple chart, but the idea here is, and you know, one of the reasons why locking in steady increases to labor and equipment is important is because the actual work is quite unpredictable. So we know every year out of all our streetlights, you're going to have ones burn out and they change the bulb. But what you also don't know is we either notice through an inspection that the actual pole is failing, and so you go to remove the pole and you find out that the conduit underneath is failing, and so those projects get very expensive very quickly when you're replacing, say, 3 streetlights, all the conduit and wiring between them. And so that's why you see these, I've presented 22, 23, 24 actuals. So these are what the municipality has actually spent, and sometimes you can see in 2 years that vary by 200,000. And then 2025 is best predictions. I can't predict how many of these we're going to come across, but these are our estimates at this time based on averages of our historical actuals.
Okay, and then in the report, it mentions on page 2 the operating versus capital, so like the sort of everyday stuff like replacing the bulbs, the smaller scale versus the full replacement of the infrastructure. Do you anticipate any full replacement of infrastructure this year?
So I predict we will. The question is how many. we also imagine we're doing a large reconstruction project on a street. We may proactively inspect all those streetlights, replace them at that time of construction while the streets tore up. A lot of the costs under this contractor mainly we do a periodic inspection, we get a complaint. We do unfortunately have car accidents where often those costs are recouped through insurance of those car accidents, but it can highlight the need for the infrastructure underground needs to be replaced. And so we do anticipate some. How many? This is my best guess at the time.
Okay, and then last two quick questions. Do we have incorporated tariff impacts on these items in terms of supplies?
So if you look at the budget, it is a little higher than those average 2 years. Obviously, tariffs is very new and rapidly changing all the time. A lot of these parts, some are made in Canada, some are made in the U.S., some are made overseas, and then obviously they come into distributors that may be in any of those three places. So it could get really complicated. And so there could be some minor impacts on tariffs. It's not like there's one supplier of these products and that they're all made in the U.S. There are different options, but it's something we're going to have to be looking at and working with Integris about. If we have a supplier that is really impacted by tariffs, are there alternatives to source?
Okay, thank you. And just in terms of the reference to budget, it seems like we're approving the recommendations before you bring it to budget. Normally, wouldn't we see it in budget and then we approve it, or is there a reason why we need to approve it now instead of reviewing it in the context of our budget conversations in the fall? Thanks.
Thank you for the question. And so, I think it's ideally if you had contracts in place years in advance, I think you could do that. Unfortunately, as we say with tariffs and costs and things change really quickly, this would be no different than, say for example, we have the gravel tender we recently passed. We put a number in the budget that we think is the number. We go out and do a tender, we come back to you with the tender award. It's slightly different, whether that's higher or lower. And then at budget time, we come back with a business case to write those numbers. And that's what this is here. We're looking at solidifying a 6-year deal. So when we come back for not only the, say, 26 and 27 budget updates to do some correction, we'll then have some more solidified pricing into the next multi-year budget. However, once again, because of changes in how many streetlights we're fixing, those budgets could still change even when we come back to you at budget time. So we're trying to do some more, like I said, splitting these costs into operational and capital, really trying to budget this better so that we're coming back to you with here's how much we think we're going to spend and trying to be as close as that as possible.
That's great. Thank you for all that info.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 16-0.
Item 22, Chief Administrative Office.
22B, motion by Councillor Sakatchi regarding Councillor Ward Funding Program.
Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I'd move that administration develop a more strategic plan for the equal distributions of funds throughout our communities, aligned with current and future arts and culture master plans in the 2025 recreational master plan and process, and report back to council prior to the 2026 budget update in the fall. In this report, if administration recommends changes to the council board funding program, they consider an effective date at the end of this term of council, so it would not impact any current council commitments, and that B, administration report back annually on the status of Hydro One funds spent to date and commitments to spend future funds.
Councillor McGrail, can I get you to put this on the floor and second it?
I sure can.
Okay, Councillor Scotchy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Kenneth. I don't really have any specific comments. If there's anything I feel that I should say after, you can just come back to me, but I don't have any related comments to the motion.
Councillor Doyle.
I just have a question for the mover. So just in reading this, just so I can clarify correctly. So for next term, it'll basically be up to whatever administration decides for how the funding will be spent. So it wouldn't be up to council to decide themselves if they want to continue with the 25,000 per council per year. It'll be up to what administration decides, or will it still come back to council to vote on whether we do the recommendation or whether we stay with what we're doing?
And Mr. Quinton, maybe if I know that you didn't comment on this report, but if it's something that yourself or Audrey can comment, but my interpretation would that a report would come back to council, and then we would either approve the report, or we would then essentially just go status quo. The whole goal of this was just to look at, I think that it's a lot of money, and currently right now there's no really strategic process to it. There's not much consideration for life cycle cost to some of the projects. All this really is there looking at a more efficient way to do so. But at the end of the day, my interpretation of moving the motion, and just to make sure, confirm with administration, that's their reception of this motion as well, is just looking at more efficiencies. But at the end of the day, it will be council's approval if we decide to change it or if we continue status quo. But I think at least case, we should at least look at ways to make some improvements to the program. But maybe it is just continue to go as such.
Through you, your worship, yeah, that's our interpretation as well. I didn't read this to at all suggest that this would allow administration to ever make the decision. I think this is either we keep the program the way it is, which has been supported by council, or we adopt a different approach, would also be supported. That would be a council decision, not a staff decision.
Yeah, I like the motion. It kind of reads in this report, if administration recommends changes to councillor, it just doesn't say that council will be able to vote on it. So that's just why in the wording, I don't know if we could just add that. Like, I do like that we have options. Like, I think it's a great motion. It just, as long as council can vote on that at the end of the day, what we decide to do, I think it's great.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. I think whether administration recommends changes or not, it's still a council decision.
Yeah,
There are times we bring things forward to council and you don't accept it, which is fine. We don't know yet whether administration will recommend changes because we haven't looked at it yet because it hasn't passed. But I'm not concerned. Ultimately, it'll be council's decision to make one way or another. It always is. So.
Oh, perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, just to clarify on that, it's set to go one more term and then it'll be done. There won't be funding after the next term of council for it. So, subject to the change of this motion. Councilor McGrail?
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kenneth. I initially pulled this because I had some questions because I wasn't clear on the intent, but Councillor Sakachi and I had a conversation. So I'm wondering through our conversation if this could be a friendly amendment, because I'm really confused in this whole program and the process of the program, process and policy of the program. So I'm wondering if we can develop a more strategic process or policy and plan would be part of that, because I think right now I'm not myself under the good understanding of, what steps need to be taken. You apply for the program, and then from there, it's like what are the steps in between? As in, okay, first let's qualify it, right? Does it, qualify underneath of the requirements of the program? Okay, step one. Step two is, yes, it does. Do we need to go back to the counselors and say, is this a project that we would like to fund? Right? And then, so then that. And then step three is, okay, let's now go back and say, okay, what's the impact on the municipality of the project? But right now, I don't think there is a clear set of steps that are taken. And I think that that's really important, that it should be done now, but absolutely going forward, should be part of this plan. So, Councillor Sakachi, are you okay with putting that in as a friendly amendment?
I guess I understand what you're saying. I just don't know what the actual, you're saying that you would initiate the.
A more strategic policy, or how, I don't know how you're.
So my
process?
interpretation would be that we would be looking at the whole thing as its an entirety. And then I think that, how this kind of got rolled out, I'm really appreciative of the funds. I'm appreciative of the effort that Mayor Caniff put in place, and I think it's a great thing. I was just hopeful that we could look at it, because it is a lot of money, that we can have a little bit more of a strategic approach. So I'm looking at the process, the enrollments, the life cycle, like all those things, and just if there's a better way we can do it, that administration look at that, take it back to us, and if there is no improvements, then we see none. But I'm looking at the entire, that was my goal, and I don't know if it needs to say something otherwise, but that is my goal.
So, sorry, through you, Your Worship, I don't think the friendly amendment is necessary. I think obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, our staff's intent is to come back with a review of the way the program has worked. I think don't forget this is the first time we've done this. In fact, very few municipalities do this. So we're all learning, staff are learning along with the councillors and probably some of the folks that you're doing, projects with. So the report that comes back won't just say, look, these are your two options. I think the report that comes back is going to be much more broader than that, and will address, any improvements that we might recommend to the program itself. I myself have things that I think we ought to do differently, but it was a pilot, and you learn from these things.
So I got two other speakers, just to clarify on that. Very few other communities, in fact, we're probably the only one community in Ontario that has this type of funded by Hydro One, given what we were able to negotiate. So we're in a very unique position, which is great. So I have Councillor Crew, then Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. I think I've clarified this in my mind, but is the intent that, so not to impact current councillor commitments? So that's the full funding until the end of our term, correct? That's what you mean? Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Councillor Anderson, followed by Councillor Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I certainly appreciate this motion coming forward, and I further, this opportunity of this grant has done so much already, and I don't see this as being anything that's going to necessarily prolong funds getting to anybody. If anyone, I think it would probably speed up the process a little bit more. I did find that as we learned as we went with certain projects, we did hit roadblocks of life cycle not being included as a thought when they applied for this funding. So then you go to Parks and Rec and say, okay, what's your life cycle going to cost? And then, okay, now you can't necessarily get, $25,000, we have to put so much into life cycle. So I see this as streamlining it, and actually probably making the process a little bit faster. So I definitely appreciate Councillor Scotchy and everybody else that worked on this motion, bringing it forward, and I'm certainly happy to support it.
Councillor Finn.
Thank you. Just one question to administration. Are there any other community funding programs that are available to the city that will also be looked at? Meaning as to how it's distributed, where it's distributed?
Well, I know that in the years past, the City of Windsor had ward funds, but it wasn't through a community contribution like this. It was actually taxpayer dollars. So they just took a portion and made that available to councillors. This was in a way to make sure that certain projects got done in certain wards. But I don't have, there's not a lot of examples of this.
I don't mean as for councillor, but as a community fund as a whole. Are there other organized, North Kent Wind gave us funding. Are there any others? Are they all being looked at as well?
I don't know if you can answer that.
Well, certain ones are kind of privately managed, so we as the municipality don't touch any other. Okay. There's a couple out there, but we don't manage those. Okay. You got your community fund, you got the North Wind Fund. Both of those are managed separately, funded through endowments and various things. So the only other one is that what's on the agenda tonight is the funds that we put out annually towards events and other projects that we approved
Okay, I
for
was
the
just
consent
basically
agenda.
looking at any that was coming that administration would have say on where it's
That's
distributed.
very good to note, is that we are very much looking at any other investments that happen to get those type of funds coming in, that we have additional abilities to invest in our community.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can, I think I understand your question now, but I think the mayor answered it just fine. One of the things I will say is that while we will look at the program pursuant to this motion if it passes, one of the things that we can't change is the purposes behind the money. That's the difference here, is the money was given to us attached to certain purposes, which is arts, culture, and recreation. And that's where we sometimes run into trouble, because how do we interpret, what exactly that means? We do have some other opportunities, obviously, through the Together CK program. We also were given some money from our friends at, they're such close friends that I can't remember the name right now.
Tech Savvy?
Sorry? A Tech Savvy, thank you. And I'm actually a Tech Savvy customer, maybe not any longer, but I was. And those don't have the same restrictions, so that's something we have to keep in mind. And maybe one of the things that we could do to help council after this report, or if Audrey's listening, in addition to this report, maybe what we can do is point out that in the event that this particular program doesn't provide the sources of funding that like it doesn't qualify for funding, there are other sources that perhaps as counselors we can help you have a better understanding of, so that if something doesn't meet the requirements, then maybe there's another source of funds that do meet the requirements.
Councillor Scotch, any final words on this?
Just my final comment is just that I think that this is as you mentioned, a very good thing for our community. All I'm hoping for is that it's supported, that at the end of the funds and when they're done, that we have the most, I guess, we've used it for the most opportunity as possible, and that we have the most to show for it. Mr. Quinton just indicated how many challenges we have, so I think spending our money strategically and efficiently is something that we just make sure that we have to do in a very detailed fashion. So I just hope it gets supported so we can at least have those options in front of us.
With that, we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0.
Item 23, Health and Human Services.
23A, motion by Councillor McGrail regarding boil water advisory fact sheet.
Councillor McGrail.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Caniff, that a fact sheet be made available for residents to refer to in a boil advisory situation outline. This includes steps the municipality needs to comply with, time required to accomplish said steps, and any precautions with these steps. Also, all municipal communications communicate basic timelines when a boil advisory is called, and updates are communicated to public if they veer from basic timeline, including all factors that may push back basic protocol timelines. Also, follow up with instructions to residents on what to do after the boil advisory has ended.
Councillor Wright, can I get you to put this on the floor? Second it?
I'll second it.
Okay, Councillor McGrail, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Caniff, I want to first start by saying, we're very fortunate in this municipality that we don't deal with a lot of boil water advisories. And so when it happens, it does put our residents in a tailspin. I can only speak for myself. This time last month, or within the last month, is the first time I've had to deal with a boil water advisory in North Kent. I learned a lot through that process, and I just come tonight with some thoughts and what I've learned, throughout this process. So within this, and I've talked to Jody and her team, and we're making steps to figure out a way to see forth, and I appreciate that very much, that we are working together. Like I said today earlier, it's just like when, my first question is, and it was very much, is like when you have a change in pressure, that's what happened in Mitchell's Bay area, who do you call? Okay, and especially when it's after hours, who do you, you call and you alert, there's something going on. So I worked, and Darren, I should say, Darren's not here. There we go. Darren, thank you. And the PUC, we're working all together to sort this out. So my first question to Darren, if I can, is who do you call?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Darren Galworth, General Manager, Chatham-Kent Public Utilities Commission. During working hours, 8:30 to 4:30, 311 can be called, as well as the 519-360-1998. The representatives there will be able to direct the call to the appropriate people. In most cases of lost pressure, which was the case in Mitchell's Bay, would be going to Public Works. Further review after 4:30 is where we need continuous improvement. Our website, the municipal website, where it's the water wastewater services, who to call. It talks about water main breaks, sewer backups, those sort of things, and it's to call 519-360-1998. It doesn't talk about pressure. Frequently asked questions does not also address loss of pressure. But then when you call 311 after 4:30 for water main issues, it directs it to Integris, which is the wrong group to be calling, because Integris will not know why there's a loss of pressure. Usually only Public Works or Public Utilities Commissions will know why there's a loss of pressure to resolve the issue. So there is a continuous improvement, which I will look into and work with, and also work with the Integris Customer Service Department as to when they get those calls, they need to redirect those, not just say call a plumber.
Perfect, thank you. I love that answer, thank you. Number 2, fact sheets. I do not expect a hard copy of a fact sheet to be distributed, but I think it would be a good idea that when the alert comes on, that there is a link to the fact sheet. So people can have that really easy one click and get that fact sheet to at least get comfortable of what is a water advisory and what to expect. Also in that, I would love to see on our main municipal website a banner, you know, when any kind of advisory comes up, is it well, and then they can go to the municipality and it's right there and you can click on that fact sheet and information there too. So I'm looking for easy click, easy ways to access information. And through that, we also need to give residents the contact information for public health. Okay, even though we may think of public health when the water pressure goes low, some people may not, and that's your first advice. Because I was getting questions that I have no right to answer in regards to public health, and I should not and will not answer those questions, but public health should be available, and that just needs to be mentioned in the alerts and in our fact sheets. We need to set expectations with boil water advisories. So we're still working through that piece, and we'll continue to, I'm sure, work through that piece and figure out how to make that work for everybody involved. And then after the boil advisory is rescinded, we need to address what is next. So after it was rescinded, I was still getting those phone calls, and those phone calls was, what do I do? Do I run my taps for 10 minutes afterwards to clear out, or is it all good? We can just assume normal activities, but we need to put that out there, even though it is maybe a just continue use, but we have to put that out there, continue use. And I think that would really help the situation and the phone calls. And so through this motion, that's what I'm hoping to accomplish here. So, you know, if you can help support, that would be very much appreciated.
Councillor Wright?
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Through to you, Darren. You have low-pressure monitoring systems that contacts your workers that are on call, I believe, don't you? Like, when you have a low pressure, your workers get called, like the on-call staff?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Councillor Wright. So at the different water towers and different the water plants, we do have pressure monitors, so if they dip below a certain pressure, we do get called out. The Mitchell's Bay one was a bit of a different circumstance because the water tower was out of service when the problem did occur, so that became a bit of a different issue. But typically, yes, we will know when the pressure does drop.
Okay, because I know from the fire department, if we used a lot of water, the alarms would be going off and we'd be getting staff there, so thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll put it to, oh, Jody, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to comment on the motion and the reference to the basic timeline. So first, I'd like to thank Councillor McGrail for bringing this forward to our attention. As she stated, Fortunately, we don't get into a situation very often where we do have boil water advisories. And so I think that it is important that we make our messaging as clear as we can. Safety is of paramount importance to everybody, and we want to make sure people stay safe. With respect to the timeline, we are not able to provide detailed timelines because of all of the different conditions that potentially could impact when we might be able to rescind that boil water advisory. So we're able to provide information around process. However, because every situation is different, we're not able to provide details with respect to timeline. We can reference the public back to the website to provide them with additional information. We can get an FAQ document on there that provides them with lots more information, but that will be challenging for us. So I just wanted to comment on that and note that. Thank you.
Councilor McGrail, are you okay keeping the way it is, or modifying the timeline? Would you be okay with changing that based on that one piece?
Yeah, and I completely understand that situations are completely different, but maybe it is referencing back that, heads up, when a boil advisory is, these are the steps that need to be taken, kind of type deal. I'm just, in my head, water is such a necessity to everybody. Water is involved in most things that we do in our households and around. So when that is disrupted and it's 3 days, minimum, that's what I'm looking for is that, and I understand it's like, we don't want to say 3 days because then they think after 3 days it's done. And I understand that piece too. But I somehow would like to convey that this isn't a 10-hour, a 12-hour, or 24-hour thing. This is a hunker down for a little bit, and this will disrupt your life. And I feel my phone calls that I got during that time period was very much, when can we use our water, right? When is it on? When is it on? It's that managing the expectation, and I'm not sure how to do that with, and I say timelines, but maybe it's giving that other information to manage that piece of it, because water is such a necessity in our lives.
Councilor Anderson?
Yeah, thank you. And I definitely appreciate the question of the timeline. And I'm not sure that we should take it out of there. I think that there is a basic timeline. If it is a loss of pressure, there's a minimum amount of time that your water is, that you're going to need to boil the water. And at the PUC meeting, I did ask this question as well of like, for somebody that maybe doesn't have the opportunity to boil the water and they need to go buy it, how much are they buying? Do they need enough for a week? Do they need enough for 24 hours? Or what does that look like, right? And I think the answer I kind of got was like, well, just bet as much as you can. It's like, well, not everybody has access to just go out and buy a month's worth of water, say, if they're only going to need it for 2 or 3 days, right? So I think a timeline, like a general timeline, is a reasonable ask.
Okay, seeing no other questions, then we'll put it to vote.
All votes are in. Motion passes 17-0.
We are going to move into notice of motion. We have 6 of them tonight. So I will give out the order of which we're going in. The order on my sheet. So Councillor Harrigan, Doyle, Story, Juvenville, Sakachi. Councillor Harrigan, we'll start with you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Harrigan, hereby give notice that I will bring the following motion for discussion and debate at the April 28th council meeting. Whereas CCTV cameras have been in place in Chatham-Kent for approximately 2 years, and whereas petty crime and vandalism continues to happen in community spaces and parks outside of existing CCTV areas, costing Chatham-Kent in staff time and resources, negatively impacting public spaces for the general public usage. And whereas community members have expressed desire to expand CCTV cameras to other public areas. Therefore, be it resolved that CK Council receive a report on the usage, successes, and opportunities of CCTV cameras, including the opportunity, legal advice, and cost to expand into other public spaces, such as parks, and that this report include any recommendations for how those expansion costs and ongoing lifestyle costs could be funded, and any provincial grant opportunities. Thank you, Mayor Caniff.
Councillor Doyle, followed by Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I, Councillor Doyle, will bring forth the following motion for voting and discussion on the April 28th council meeting. whereas the provincial government downloaded the former provincial highways to the municipality of Chatham-Kent in 1998 with only enough funding to last approximately 3 years worth of major capital repairs and no operating funding. And whereas over the last 2 decades, Chatham-Kent property taxes have had to pay the burden of both operating and capital repairs to these former provincial highways, and whereas municipal inflation cost on road and bridge constructions has averaged approximately 5% above Canada CPI over the last decade, and whereas the financial arrangement that municipalities rely on to serve Ontario is increasingly inadequate to meet the demands of service delivery downloaded onto municipalities, and whereas AMO and Roma have repeatedly asked for new provincial municipal partnership review of municipal and provincial services funding, therefore be it resolved that administration prepare a report to council detailing the former provincial highways downloaded to Chatham-Kent and the projected cost to operate them and do capital repairs over the next decade, and provide recommendations and a financial advocacy plan for council to consider in order to request funding from the province in the 2026-2027 budget.
Councillor Doyle, followed by Councillor Story.
I, Councillor Doyle, will bring forward the following motion to be discussed and voted on the April 26th council meeting. Whereas fire services has been traditionally funded by the property taxes in Ontario, and whereas over the last decade, more and more traditionally provincial funded services such as homelessness, affordable housing, child care, long-term care, hospital support, public health, and former provincial roads and other provincial downloads have been increasingly forced on municipalities to fund through increasing property taxes. And whereas provincial population growth requires more housing and expanded fire services across Ontario, and whereas the province funds approximately 50% of land ambulance emergency services, and whereas the impact of provincial legislation on the operations and labor costs of fire services continue to increase the capital costs to local property taxpayers, and whereas the financial arrangement that municipalities rely on to serve Ontarians is increasingly inadequate to meet the demands of service delivery downloaded onto municipalities, and whereas the cost of Chatham-Kent fire services is approaching $20 million annually for operations and capital costs, or over $180 per capita, and whereas AMO and ROMO have repeatedly asked for new provincial municipal partnership review of Ontario municipal and provincial services funding, therefore be it resolved that the Mayor's office send a letter to the provincial government on behalf of council requesting the province to fund 20% of the annual operating and capital costs of fire services across Ontario in their upcoming 2025-2026 budget, and to also send letters asking AMO, Roma, and the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs and the Ontario Fire Service Section 21 Advisory Committee to endorse this request. For the municipality of Chatham-Kent, this request is for $4 million annually funding for fire services. Thank you.
Councillor Story, followed by Councillor Jubenville.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Whereas the municipality of Councillor Story will bring the following motion for discussion and voting on May 12th, 2025. Whereas the municipality of Chatham-Kent is home to a diverse range of businesses, industries, and workers who contribute to the local, regional, and global economy. And whereas recent tariffs imposed by the United States government have created significant economic uncertainty, particularly in sectors such as manufacturing, agriculture, energy, and steel and aluminum, which are vital to the economic well-being of Chatham-Kent. And whereas these tariffs are either currently or have potential to increase costs for local businesses, disrupt supply chains, reduce export opportunities, and impact approximately 8,300 jobs in our community dependent directly on U.S. demand. Whereas Ontario municipalities, including Chatham-Kent, currently rely on strong trade relationships with the United States, and economic instability resulting from tariffs may have long-term consequences for local economic growth, local jobs, and financial stability. And whereas several thousand automotive workers in this region have already been laid off, and whereas municipalities have a responsibility to advocate for economic policies that protect local jobs, investment, and sustainable growth in their communities, be it resolved that Chatham-Kent administration bring back a report with the following: financial review of all non-essential and or non-critical spending over $200,000 that could be temporarily or permanently redirected to emergency measures as set out as B, a draft emergency plan to redirect these non-essential spending to create a proposed economic stimulus and support fund and implementation plan, including local solutions to strengthen our local economy, like expanding our housing supply chain using everything from Canadian lumber to labor, tax relief or related supports for residents experiencing job loss and local businesses significantly impacted by tariffs. Item C, an economic assessment identifying the most high-risk employment sectors and estimated job loss resulting from tariff impacts in our community. And D, a financial contingency plan for potential municipal budget impacts in the event that Chatham-Kent residents experience significant job loss in the coming year. All items above would come to council for approval before any decisions are made. Thank you.
Councillor Jubenville, followed by Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I, Councillor Rhonda Jubenville, bring forward the following notice of motion to be discussed and voted on at the April 28th meeting of council. Whereas York One Waste Solutions did propose a waste processing, storage, and transfer facility, a landfill, and potential composting facility at 29831 Irish School Road. And whereas the proposed facility is in close proximity to Dresden and has the potential for serious impacts to Dresden, nearby properties, natural features, infrastructure, and the environment. And whereas York One Waste Solutions has recently sold the property at 29831 Irish School Road, Dresden, and transferred the ownership on February 4th, 2025 to a new owner, and therefore, given the scale and nature of this proposal, the significant municipal concern for community, environment, and infrastructure impacts, Chatham-Kent Council is still opposed in principle to the use of this property as waste processing, storage, and transfer, and landfilling facility, despite who the owner of the property may be. Thank you, Mayor Caniff.
Councillor Scotchy.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. Just to the clerk, feel free to I'll put this motion on whenever you have the ability to, because I understand that there's a lot, so I'm not going to give a date. I understand if it's not the next meeting of council. I, Councillor Anthony Sakachi, will be bringing the following motion for voting discussion. Whereas Talbot Trail from Coatsworth Road to Stevenson Road has been closed since 2019 due to lake erosion and that compromise the structural integrity of the road, and whereas the province of Ontario downloaded former Highway 3 in 1998, and whereas the province is expending approximately $500 million on the same highway just 25 kilometers west, with doubling of 2 lanes to 4 lanes from Leamington to Windsor, and whereas Talbot Trail is a key artery for the agricultural community in the transport of field tomatoes, field crops, and many greenhouse vegetables for processing facilities and markets. And whereas agriculture is a $4 billion industry in Chatham-Kent that relies on safe roads for their operation. And whereas council has approved the engineering work on the detour that will provide a solution that will remove the section of Talbot Trail from the 30-year hazard zone and allow the road to reopen at an estimated cost of $5 million. Therefore, be it resolved that administration approach a new Minister of Agriculture and MPP for Chatham-Kent Leamington, Trevor Jones, with the request for $5 million of provincial funding for the Talbot Trail project in the provincial 2025-26 budget to resume the flow of agricultural products for the future economic success of our region.
Okay, closed session report, Madam Clerk.
Just to let everyone know that we need to go back into closed session as we didn't finish the agenda, so the report will come out the following meeting.
Sorry, communication items. Councillor Story and Councillor Thompson, can I get you to move them, please?
Yes, I have one I'd like to pull, Mayor Caniff, but I would happy to move that. Thank you.
I'll second and have nothing to pull.
Okay, then Councillor Story, you wanted to pull item 2A.
That's correct. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to let folks know that we are happy to submit our Senior of the Year to the Ontario Senior of the Year nomination process. Mr. Gahunya was our nominee, very well deserved. No, we only can do one name. Yes, the couple was nominated, but the Ontario province only allows for one person. But and each one chose the other, not surprisingly. So we have to officially nominate them at council for them to be nominated at the provincial level. So I'd just like to do that tonight. And just a reminder that the Seniors of the Year for this year, the coming year, is April 13th, the deadline. You can find those applications on our website or at your municipal service center. And June 4th will be the celebration of older adults at Hidden Hills Golf Course. And we will be announcing the winner for this year at that event. But today, all we need to do is nominate Mr. Gahunya for the Ontario Awards. Please and thank
And
you.
Councillor Crew, can you second that, please? Anyone opposed? That motion carries. And anyone opposed to all the items, information? Carried. Reading of the first and second, non-agenda business. Councillor B. McGregor.
Thank you. Just wanted to note that April 7th to 11th is Canadian Public Health Week. So wanted to recognize all those working locally here in Chatham-Kent Public Health for their dedication to public health in Ontario. Thank you.
Councillor Juneville.
Thank you, Mayor Caniff. I just have a couple questions. I'm just looking for clarification. The community hub, some constituents have reached out to me, so I just want to make sure that I've got the information proper. So is a future report coming back to council on the community hub on May 12th? I want to confirm that that is indeed happening. Because I believe it was stated that it was going to be brought back to council in the first quarter. So the first quarter has already transpired. So I just want to make sure that it is coming back May 12th, and just looking for clarification as to why it didn't come back in the first quarter. And further, I just want to make sure that deputations will be allowed at this meeting. So 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe a couple of councils ago, through a response to a motion, the staff did indicate that the report would be coming back on May the 12th. At this point in time, we anticipate delegations would be allowed. It is a public report and it'll follow the normal process.
And from the perspective of deputations, yes, they will be received.
Thank
Councillor
you.
Bondi.
Thank you, Mayor Canfield. I'm following Councillor Juvenville's question. This report, is it going to be like an information report, or is it going to be a vote on the hub? Do we know? Like a yes or no, right? Like, or is this an information report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through yourself to the councillor. There's a number of motions related to this item that have come up in the past, so staff will be reporting back on the final design, providing an update to those various motions, providing council with an updated report itself in terms of the costs. So the recommendation, it is a recommendation report that we'll be coming back to council with.
So, sorry, so by that, if we accept the recommendation, I think you know what I'm saying, like, are we voting to go ahead with the hub, or is that not on that recommendation?
The recommendation would be to proceed to a tender of the project.
So this would be the vote, right? You know what I'm saying?
It would,
No,
perhaps.
it won't be. So if we vote to send it out to tender, that's not voting to proceed?
No, because you always have the ability to turn down the tender. So that it wouldn't be it wouldn't necessarily be the final decision. There were I can't recall the motion, but I believe that there was an amount at some point that was mentioned. So council always has the ability to turn it down at a later stage. Mr. Solda, would you agree?
Yes, to the mayor, I would agree. It's to go out to tender, and that's really when we'll find the true cost of the project itself, when we go out to tender.
Okay, and again, on the same topic, so I don't remember when the buyback clause expires, but this would happen prior to that? Like, not May 12th, but would the tender be required prior to the expiration of the buyback?
That's correct.
It would, so the
It
tender
would
would
be
be,
coming back before the expiration date.
the tender would?
That's correct.
Okay, good, that's what I was kind of looking for. Okay, that's great, okay, thanks.
Councillor Story, followed by Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. would it be possible to know a timeline for the tender on that same item? If this does proceed to the next step on May 12th, when would we be, do you have a ballpark of when we would be talking of seeing that tender report come back to us?
Through you to the mayor, all that information will be included in the report. At this time, I can't give you a timeline. We're still working on the report and the project.
Okay. In a previous motion that I made last March, which passed, when we talked about funding sources for this proposal, we had requested that information in advance, just because it's likely going to be a substantial report, as it should be, to make an informed decision. And we were hoping when we were voting on next steps, we had approved getting that in advance. We didn't give a time frame. I think it was 2 weeks the last time. I'm hopeful that we can get that information in advance versus a Wednesday to Monday time frame, like we have before. Is that an option?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we'll endeavor to do our best to get this report out as early as we can, but it is a substantial report that we need to pull together, and May 12th isn't that far away.
Okay, well, maybe I can talk to the clerk about that, because on March 18th, 2024, we did pass a motion that indicated that, but maybe I apologize, I didn't bring that sooner. I just looked at that now. So maybe we can talk about that offline. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I know that you've asked for motions. I didn't know that that was coming up tonight, so I don't have it handy to read the interpretation of that particular motion, so I'll have to get back to council on that.
Yep, that's fine.
Councillor Anderson.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Included in that report, will there be a cost associated with the delay and additional costs potentially due to the several extra motions that have been added to this project?
Thank you to the mayor, to the councillor. That would be that'd be difficult to determine what that is, given all the changing environment that we've had, inflation, the tariffs. We are constantly updating our budgeting through our architect. They do have a cost consultant on board, and they're looking at the latest information that they have to determine that cost estimate. So we'll have an up-to-date cost estimate as of May the 12th.
Just to follow up, is it safe to say that there has been additional costs related to the delay and additional motions that have been added onto this project?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, that'd be a difficult position for me to say that what those are. But the longer we wait to get this project out, we've heard clearly tonight, as the best time to spend money is now, and it's the longer we wait, the higher those costs are going to go.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the first and second reading. Councillor Finn and Councillor Harrigan.
Happy to move it.
So seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Crew and Doyle, the third and final reading.
So moved.
So seconded.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Resolution of council in closed session. Yes. So yes, after this, we will take a 5-minute break and then come back to finish the closed session. And Councillor Juveville, can I get you to wrap up the open session, please?
I so move.
I move that Chatham-Kent Council adjourn to its next meeting to be held on Monday, April 28th, 2025, and that Chatham-Kent Council authorize itself to meet in closed session on that day to discuss any matters permitted by the Municipal Act.
And seconded.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. We'll see you in 5 minutes in closed. Thanks.